Well, welcome everyone. SpiriTV Sunday edition. Got three great shows lined up for you. We'll start off with Beyond the Body with Calico, followed by Divine Intervention with Ken, and followed directly then by Modern Mystics with Andy. So without further ado, Beyond the Body with Calico.
I am just a little runaway. 47 years and still I'm on the run. Afraid of love, I'm keeping God at bay. Spending days in a nightmare ain't much fun. I am just a little runaway. For my misery, always blaming someone else. I'm really into judgment and delay, but only hurting me and I and myself.
Oh, hello, everybody. Whoa. Oh, my. You know, this program feels so timely. And I know Jeff and I are moderators on the 30-day program, Unwind Your Mind Experience. And it's been coming up in that group and been coming up in our household. And so it just felt like this topic, its time had come. And today we're going to talk about free will. And I must say, this one confused me to no end for most of my life. And for me, free will felt like, and this is the way it occurred in the parable of Calico, if you pissed me off, I wrote you off. So it was like I did a lot of stuffing of emotions. I just, okay, well, you don't agree with me. I don't have to deal with you anymore, and I won't. And this is, I think, a huge confusion within A Course in Miracles, because most of the people I did book study were in agreement on this. So we were writing people off right and left. And that is not the way free will is described by Jesus. And so I wanted to just go into that a little, because I think if you can really grasp this topic of free will, you've got the whole teachings of Jesus. So it's just one little topic that you have to get your handle on. And this is in chapter 13 under Finding Purpose, Finding the Present. Awakening unto Christ is following the laws of love of your free will, and out of quiet recognition of the truth in them. The attraction of light must draw you willingly, and willingness is signified by giving. Okay, so now we just entered another little topic of giving. What the heck is giving? You know, I give money, I support all the right causes, I support all the right politicians, and, you know, life still sucks. So it's kind of like really kind of going much deeper with this into this idea. And, you know, again, the parable of Calico is full of these ideas of right and wrong, good and bad. And I titled this show, actually, Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? And that was a huge belief I had to really rankle with, because I saw myself as a good person and I saw bad things happening to me. So it was kind of like, well, screw God. And that's where it would cycle in this really negative way of this can't be right. And really all it was my hatred of God, because I kept seeing God as creating bad things happening to good people. So in the separation and the atonement, the origins of the separation, because this free will thing goes back to, this is the unraveling of why would anyone separate from heaven? That seems awfully silly. But I was doing it all the time. So in here, it explains it quite. Jesus is very clear. He doesn't mince words. The inappropriate use of extension. Now, this is giving. Okay, so giving and extension are the same thing. The inappropriate use of extension or projection occurs when you believe that some emptiness or lack exists in you, and that you can fill it with your own ideas instead of truth. I did it all the time. First, there's 4 things. It's a process. It's like 4 things. First, you believe that what God created can be changed by your own mind. Oh my God. I was always attempting in the parable of Calico to change something. Everything that I saw as bad needed to be changed. So I was always seeing that God created something and I needed to change it with my will. Okay? Because I was seeing free will as something I needed to do in form. And that's not it. Free will is love. That's all it is, love. Second, you believe that what is perfect can be rendered imperfect or lacking. And this is where all those people in the parable of Calico that I made wrong, they were not perfect. Okay? And I was clear they weren't perfect. And a lot of people around me were in agreement with me. I like to, again, this is dating myself, and some may not understand this, but in my parable, Kennedy was the perfect president. Nixon was the worst president, okay? Well, the reality is Kennedy got us into the war in Vietnam. It wasn't Nixon. Many people say, well, Nixon got us into, no. Kennedy did. My good So this is like really messing with my thinking, okay? Well, good is not good anymore. Good is bad, but bad is not really bad. And so this is where I got free will pretty confused. I wanted to support the right candidate. I wanted to support the good candidate. I wanted to not support the bad candidate. It's this whole belief system of good and bad. One is better than, and manifesting. I mean, this brings in this whole topic of free will brings in this concept of manifesting. If I can get the right candidate into office, if I can make enough money, if I can have the perfect relationship or live in the perfect home, I will be happy. But that never panned out for me. And I really had this whole idea, because free will also goes into the script is written. So my script towards the very end, before I completely gave up and really became willing to make the peace of God my only desire, was in this nasty foreclosure I had with Chase Manhattan Bank. It was my perfect home. I had the perfect home with the perfect animals in the perfect location. Everything was perfect, except Chase, there was a little clerical error at some point. And it resulted in a foreclosure. And I fought like a pit bull, man, in the ring. I gave it my all. I was fighting everything. It ended with AK-47s, nasty takeovers, governors were involved. I mean, I was fighting because this was not right. This was wrong. And this is where I got completely slammed against the wall, which was absolutely perfect. Because I really got, well, the only thing I want is the peace of God. Because Eckhart Tolle sitting on the park bench with no money, no food, he had the peace of God. And that was his only desire. And he was happy. And that's really all I've wanted my whole life was happiness. So when I gave up fighting the foreclosure and walking away from the dream house, the dream animals, the dream property, the dream everything, the horizontal dream of what perfection was, when I was able to move beyond that and quit fighting and quit making them wrong, and it was a lot of thems. In that parable, when I was able to turn that around, and that was my free will, I could choose to fight or I could choose to make peace. I could choose to make wrong or I could choose to love. I could choose to fear or love. That was it. That's free will. And the reality is, I am love. I forgot. That was the separation. Third, you believe that you can distort the creations of God, including yourself. I can distort the creations of God. Everything is love. It's only my thinking that is stinking. And that's for me to go back to my mind and go, where is a correction needed? Because I desire the peace of God. The fourth process in this use of extension to correct the emptiness or lack that we see in our lives. You believe that you can create yourself, and the direction of your own creation is up to you. And oh my God, my whole life has been spent finding the perfect everything, you know? And then after the foreclosure, then the cancer came, and it was like, really? But that even took me deeper into this concept of my free will is only love. It's not about trying to change anything. The body, and that's hence the name of this show, Beyond the Body. Me thinking that I know what's best on any level. And it's really about moving that from what can Calico get to what can I extend. It wasn't about me receiving something. I was a crappy extender. I didn't know how to extend love everywhere. I had my exceptions. I had my exclusions, you know, politics, job, relationships. And if I didn't agree with something, they were dead to me. I just walked away going, well, I don't have to deal with them anymore. But the reality is I am love. So guess what? Love deals with everything. And I was gifting myself a script that was perfect for learning this lesson. And all it says, and you know, in the beginning of the book, the very beginning, and this one I didn't understand for most of my life, or study of this course, free will does not mean that you get to establish the curriculum. The curriculum is written, and it's to bring us back to love. Everything. And this is free will because we are love. We forgot. That's when we separated. So until we bring this back to merging these two errors in thinking, that I'm separate, and then I can correct something. I can manifest something better than what I've got. It's like, no, can you love what you are? No matter what it looks like. No matter what the circumstances. You know, I was taken back to, again, the Calico. I mean, I've given myself these parables, and it's not by chance. You know, in Africa, man, everything was wrong in Africa, everything. And I was in a refugee camp. There was nothing right in the refugee camp, absolutely nothing. But I met these beautiful people, and they were refugees, and they would walk every day a mile to the hospital that was 30 beds, and there were usually 4 or 5 people in the bed. I made all of this wrong. Not enough beds, you know, not enough people assisting. But these refugees would actually give without any intention of getting anything for themselves. They would walk a mile to the hospital to clean sheets from 4 leaking people. You know, I mean, they would wash sheets all day and then walk back to their blue plastic enclosures. And I spent a lot of time with a couple of them, and I asked, why are you doing this? You have nothing. You should be spending all day trying to figure out where your next meal is coming from, and yet you're walking to the hospital, serving, and then walking back. And it's like, it made no sense to me. And, you know, they had so much more faith than I did. They had blue plastic enclosure for their weekly church services, and they would just pray. And they knew that extension for them was in giving what they could in a situation that seemed completely unmanageable. And so they would show up every day. What can I do? How can I serve? And it's like, and it's not about changing the situation. They had no interest in changing anything. It was that they were there to hold the hand of a child that his mother just died. They were there to take care of others in any way that they could, because they knew they were love. They knew they had that to give. And if we can't see this in our own lives and stop making people wrong. And in the 30-day program, there was a beautiful share by a man, Dan, and he was making some things wrong. And it was like overnight he got that that's not it. It's mine to really see with clarity. And particularly from a teacher like David, who is uncompromising in these principles. And that's the main reason I'm living in the Living Miracles community, is I needed someone uncompromising, because it was too easy for me to wiggle out in every way possible. This is still not as good as this. It's like, no, it's all perfect. And until I really, really live that concept, there's no love. And so, just to kind of have some kind of flow with this program, these 4 processes, the inappropriate use of extension, these related distortions represent a picture of what actually occurred in the separation. So every time we're making anything or anybody wrong, I don't care how wrong they are. In my world, Nixon was so wrong, so very wrong. But that was me separating again. And it was until I became willing to not do that, to not make anyone wrong, not make any food wrong, not make any treatment wrong, not make anything anywhere wrong, did I start turning the big ship around. And I say this, David says it in one of his talks, making this shift in mind, because everything is upside down and turned inside out. And until you really transition that around, you're not going to go anywhere with A Course in Miracles. And so this was my beginning of turning the ship around, of really seeing I had to make no exceptions to the law of love. And there is only one law, and that is to love. And so he says I see it as a giant aircraft carrier. And it's like when they make a decision to turn the ship around, they set the coordinates. But it takes a long time for that ship to actually turn around. And that's where we get to practice extending love in all situations, no matter what. And that's me actually healing the separation in every decision in my mind that says, no, I think I will accept that this is perfect. And it means really being humble. And this is not one that came normal or natural to me on any level, because I was right. I live my life, I'm right, and I am the captain of my ship, and I will take it where I feel is in my best interest to go. And it's until I became humble and willing to go, okay, God, I'm not in charge here. Foreclosure, cancer, I am so not in charge. And that's what the gifts of those were. And Rethinking Sickness, I just need to say, we're going to be doing a new program. Starts June 1st, I think. But it really is to see that the healing is in my mind always. So it doesn't matter if you're sick or you see something wrong in your body, or if you're making your next door neighbor an enemy. That's the healing of the separation. It's those little things. And the only way through that is to share. And this is where the 30-day program, prayer and support we offer through Living Miracles, can support you in this. It's to really, really express, wow. And this is what Dan did in the 30-day program. He expressed, I'm making David wrong. And that's not helpful. And it's like, and that's really humility. That's really going, yeah, I had an error in my thinking, and I was making a situation wrong, a person wrong, politics wrong, foreclosures wrong, cancer wrong, refugee camps wrong. Whatever it is that you're making wrong, that's your gift to yourself, to see it differently, so that you can start healing this separation. The related distortions represent a picture of what actually occurred in the separation. We thought we had a better way. I know how to deal with refugees, politics, health. That's not being humble. That's just the opposite, which kept me in the separation. And that's the only way to detour from fear. So all of these things were fear makers in my mind. Fear that people could be hungry, fear that people could be homeless, fear that people could be sick and die, fear of politics going badly. But the reality with politics, I just need to sidetrack here, is they're all equally distorted. Doesn't matter who you support or who you think is wrong. They're just our gifts for loving, for learning to love. It seems so simple, and saying it sounds so simple. And believe me, and I used this description before, so many of my opportunities for love came with someone extending to me a handful of rattlesnakes. And that's the way it felt. It's like, what, are you nuts? No, that's the access. Receive the gift exactly as it is given. And I have learned, now that I'm really getting these principles and working with them on a daily basis, that's the only reason this community exists. We all have a group of people in this community that are committed to working this. And it's not easy. Loving everything, no matter what. And you want to hate people so bad sometimes, and you think, no, they have nothing to offer me. This is, as Frances Yu said in one of her shares, this is messed up. Well, I used to use the F word, but basically it's the same thing. This is messed up, that I have to see this differently. But that's the access. That gets you back to who you are as free will, which is to love. That's the only reason we're here, is to love all of it. Every single little thing, particularly if we don't like it. Because that's going to be the fast track. If you can grab those things, it's easy to fall in love with someone that you're attracted to, and you fall in love with a beautiful home, fall in love with a new job, more money. Those are easy things, but that's taking in the wrong direction. Fall in love with the things that you really don't like. And that's where Rethinking Sickness was so powerful, because everyone came to this program not liking something a lot. Whether it was their body, their sickness, their situation, they didn't like it a lot. And I say that's the first step. That actually speeds up the process. Great. If you can find something that you really don't like, stay there with God. Holy Spirit, help me see this differently. Holy Spirit, decide for God for me. This is unbearable. I hate this. Great. I have free will to learn how to love, to learn that I don't know how to do this, and learn that there is one that can help me. And that's Holy Spirit. That's God. Jesus, that's the only reason Jesus was in body, was to show us how to do this process. And there you go. That is A Course in Miracles in a nutshell. And it's like, the more we can really be honest, and this is where the expression is so critical, because I would just shove expressions, it's like, well, I'll just never think about that again. And it would loop through, and I go, no, not thinking about it. It'll loop through again. No, I'm really not going to think about it. And until I was able to say, guess what I'm thinking? And this smells bad. I don't like this. I don't want to own it. I don't want to express it. But when I would express it, then there was freedom. And that just kind of, the ship just was able to angle more and more and more in the direction back to free will, which is to be the loving being that I am. Because separation is in my mind. Sickness is in my mind. Refugees are in my mind. They're all just thoughts. And they're for me to correct and change and bring back to what is true, which is we're all loving beings. I don't care if you have a name of President Trump or Calico. We're all loving beings. We just forgot. And sometimes, I'm not going to start in this program, but the self-hatred that we have towards our body, it's a big, big big sickness. You know, it's like, no, you're love. In whatever container you find yourself, it's like, can you love the container? And that's, you know, there, all these thoughts, just take them on. Everything God created is like him. God created love. It's like him. And so that's the only choice we have in free will, is to change our mind. That's it. Simple concept. Tough to do. And that's where I invite you to do the 30-day program, Rethinking Sickness, all the many programs. Living Miracles is uncompromising because David is uncompromising. There's not a program that is offered by this community that isn't at this level of uncompromising love. And I invite you to find one that speaks to you and go there. Join. It's the only way I know to really turn this ship around, because it's a big one. Hate is a big one, and love is equally big, but it's in the opposite direction. So all I can say is I am so damn grateful for this community and for you that are willing to take this on, because it's one mind at a time. We come back to one mind, and it's love. Yeah. That's the gift we can give to ourselves. Looks like a bed of rattlesnakes, but it's totally doable. And I guarantee everyone within this community for sure, but within many of our minds community, like the 30-day program, we're looking at this and we're taking it on, we're turning it around. So until next week, and just a plug, if any of you have questions, please private message me on Facebook. I think my email is around somewhere. Send me a message and I'd be happy to answer them at some point when I get enough questions. I'll do another question and answer session. So anyway, for today, I just want you to find one area of your mind that you have a strong opinion about that is not loving, and just offer it in prayer to Holy Spirit to see it differently, and just see what miracle can come out of it. Okay? So for now, I love you all, my brothers and sisters. I can't do this without you. And we're all going home together or we're not going home. So I love you much. I love you much.
It was just a tiny mad idea at which the Son of God remembered not to laugh. We built an altar made of hate and fear. We let the ego live on our behalf.
Well, thanks, Calico. Another beautiful show, Beyond the Body. Yeah, this whole idea of giving and receiving are the same. David talks about that a lot. And there's a line in the Course that says, to have, give all, to all. And I used to get caught up on that. Like, what am I supposed to give? Do I give money? Do I give time? You know, all of that stuff. And what I realized, and it's only come in the last little while, month, 2, 3 months, whatever, it's love. That's it. That's what we need to have love. We need to give love. And that's what we need to give every minute of every day, in every situation, just giving love. So simple, isn't it? When I picked up on that, it really hit home for me. Couple of things. A forgiveness opportunity for me. I didn't scroll far enough down on my schedule sheet, and I said there's 3 shows today. There's actually 4. After Modern Mystics with Andy, Jason is back with From the Bottom Up. So I look forward to that at the end of the session today. So that the last show today will be From the Bottom Up with Jason. So that's kind of cool. I'm glad it's there. I didn't realize it was. I'm happy to see that it's back on the schedule. So that's beautiful. Hey, lots and lots and lots of events And again, all of these can be found on livingmiraclecenter.org/events. Jenny and Greg have kicked off a huge book tour. They're on the West Coast now. David's invaded there with them. So I'll mention a few of the events that are coming up in a moment. A couple of our friends, Eric Archibald and Tamara Youngblood, have started a tour of their own that's called A Guided Tour of the Heart. And that starts on actually starts today and through May 28th. So check that out on our events page as well. As far as book events on the West Coast, David, on March the 14th, David will be in Emeryville, California at Barnes & Noble. And then on March the 16th, he's doing a Saturday afternoon gathering in Lafayette, California. And then there's an open circle event with David in Berkeley, California on March the 16th as well. And then Ricky, who is on a tour of her own, will on March the 21st through the 24th, will be in Edmonton, Canada, doing a beautiful Going Deeper Forgiveness Retreat. March 27th through March 31st is our inaugural Spanish retreat at La Casa de Milagros in Chapala. And that will be with Maria Ibarz. And that's something to look forward to. That will be in Spanish. And it's the kickoff of our Spanish explosion. That's kind of cool. March 28th through the 31st, Ricky will be jumping on an airplane and flying to Portugal for a 4-day retreat there called A Pathway to Peace. And then March 29th through March 31st, sort of towards the end of March, Jenny and Greg will be leaving the West Coast and hitting the East Coast, starting off in Florida. And again, all of these retreats are available for you to see on our events page. There's a few more. I'll get into some more of them after the break. So that's it for me for now, and we'll see you in a few minutes. See you soon.
Do you find yourself dodging body thoughts which leave you feeling frustrated and fearful? Do you feel out of control in your body? Our way of dealing with health and healing the body stems from antiquated beliefs and fears since time began. Rethinking Sickness explores new paradigms and experiments with new ways of thinking about the body and health. In the field of health, we juggle different ideas, hoping one will work. These ideas sometimes work and sometimes do not, leaving us in a fog about the truth of healing and what health truly is. In this 7-week online program, we will break through old, outdated patterns and ineffectual ideas in how to heal our bodies. We will experiment with a different way of seeing. We will try on new ideas in mind, exploring a whole new way of looking at things. Come and experience a quantum classroom in the truth of who we are. As you proceed through this program, judgments which initially appeared to come at you shall disappear, and instead you will witness your joy return. Using spiritual principles as discussed in A Course in Miracles, we now can move into a whole new glorious truth of who we are. Join us in this quantum classroom.
Sometimes it feels like miracles are like happy surprises because you don't see them coming, and you just end up beholding them and feeling so grateful.
Yeah, yeah. It's a real transformation, isn't it? Like it's really a change that happens when we let the miracle in.
Yeah.
It's almost like you lose yourself in a way. You lose your small self.
Yeah. Yeah, you lose all that. It's like the past just drops off. Like a cloak you were wearing, and then all of a sudden it drops, and oh, wow.
So is there anything you would like to say to the audience, to the readers that are brand new, really curious, and they just want help with their experience?
Yeah, this is like an answer to the prayer of the heart. Just please help me. Help me be lifted up from this sadness or despair. Help me be lifted up from all these difficulties that weigh me down day after day. Yeah, this is my prayer to the universe, to be helped and to know that I am loved and to really experience the answer of how deeply loved we are. So it's just an honor. It feels like an honor. Our whole life has been an honor, and it's been a privilege to be used in this way to answer the call. Because all of us have a calling.
Yeah. So this is really a support to others to answer their calling, to find the calling and find the answer to it.
Yeah, this is it. This is a way. I mean, many of us don't think we have a calling. We just are working on surviving on planet Earth, but actually there comes a point where we know there's something more, and there's an inner calling, and this is a way of answering. This is just precisely for answering, to see it there and to answer the call. So
it's fascinating that there is an answer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So just, wow. To take it in, to enjoy it. Yeah. So beautiful. So appreciative of everything. We've got it too small. We have the power in us to activate and draw forth heaven if we choose it. When you go inside and you're able to kind of polish away all the expectations and the wants and the desires, there's this stillness, this vastness that's there, and it just kind of overtakes your awareness. You just are hushed. It's the hush of heaven. It's interesting that Buddha, Jesus, Lao Tzu, you know, the great way showers are emphasizing that we need to be humble, not proud, that we need to come to a true sense of value, and the value is in our state of mind, our attitude. What we're being told is, in order to come into your magnitude, you have to relax, you have to be still, you have to align with the source and let that magnitude come from God through the Holy Spirit and into an awareness, and that will solve everything.
Welcome back, everyone. Up next is Divine Intervention with Ken.
Welcome, everyone. Peace, brother. Good to see you. Seems like a while because we had the retreat in between, and if you were there, well, it's pretty mind-blowing, and that always sets the tone for this next chapter of the shows. And today I'm actually joined by a very special guest. I'm joined by Lilo. So thank you so much for coming to join me today. It's a real pleasure.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like with the themes of the lessons that have been coming up around grievances, I thought, wow, this is like the perfect theme. And in actual fact, yesterday I didn't even know what the show was really going to be about. And me and Lilo had a call, and there was an expression. It was like there was a grievance there, and then it was like really beautiful, and we're sharing more about that. And then afterwards, in her message, she said, "Oh, I could be on your show," but she was actually joking, and I never had any ideas for my show, and I was like, "That's not a bad idea." So I messaged her and said, "Let's have a call," and she's like, "I was actually only joking." So it was like, okay, then let's have this call, and it kind of became clear this was what we were going to share about. And in actual fact, that was actually a very beautiful gift for me, because throughout the week, often I kind of know really what I'm going to talk about and have the ideas are coming. But for some unknown reason, this week I was pretty blank, and I wasn't too sure exactly what to really share about. And as it was coming nearer the time, I actually spoke with Andy. "Oh, have you got anything for your show this week?" No, nothing's come through. "Yeah, we're just going to have to trust." "Okay, yeah, we're just going to have to trust." And of course, as the days go on, it's sort of like, okay, are you going to give me something here to work with? And it was really funny, actually, because just before Lilo messaged me, it was Saturday morning, and we just finished our meeting and everything. And I felt, okay, I'm just going to sit in my chair, and I'm just going to be peaceful. And I'm like, okay, I'm still blank. Is there anything you want me to do or to talk about? There has been lots going on, but nothing was really concrete. And then that's when I get this message from Lilo. "Hey, I could be on your show." Actually, I was only joking. And now it just feels like this perfect gift that we're together to share this. And yeah, the theme is like having grievances with each other, really. And I think that's like the most precious gift that we can really give to each other, actually, is these triggers that in Calico's show, actually, like we can set up our lives and we can try and hide away from, okay, I don't want to see this person because they trigger me. I don't want to do these types of things because they trigger me. I don't like these types of jobs because they trigger me. And so we can lose a lot of the healing through that, of not being open. And I think being here, I've been stretched, God, in every area, really, with working with computers, video editing, audio editing, now being in the studio, creating radio shows. I mean, every single one, distribution, every single one brings its own element of an area that I would never have ever seen myself in. And of course, then there can be grievances. And what I'm noticing with most of my grievances is really that I feel like a victim, or I feel unworthy. And if I'm feeling like either one of those positions, then it feels warranted that I have this grievance that I can now attack you, because you're starting to trigger my unworthiness or my victim story. And this has been like a kind of theme that's been occurring. It's like, wow. And even when we're in meetings or whatever. It's like what you actually hear and what was actually said can be like two different things. We all know that scenario. And I actually had this really beautiful realization. I feel like I'm really getting on top of something with dealing with this anger. It's like now I've put this prayer out, it's like, I don't know, something's really like shifting. Like I'm really, really noticing my mind much, much more in which I would get caught up in. And there's a particular scenario. It's like really interesting because these same scenarios keep being played out. And it's like yesterday I thought, wow, this is really great news, because actual fact, the ego, I feel like I'm getting on top of these games that I'm being tricked into. And they're not so, he doesn't seem to be as clever as he was. And it's like, okay, this is really, really interesting. I'm spotting them much earlier. And there's normally this scenario that normally happens to me whereby the seeming authority, and of course, if I'm believing in authority, I'm believing that I'm unworthy, something, a greater power than me. So I automatically put myself into this position. And now, there's a problem because I feel unworthy. And then in this situation, I'm going to hear whatever I want to hear to make this situation real. And normally the situation is that, yeah, we need to talk about this a bit more. Okay, so I'm in trouble. So this is what I'm hearing, I'm in trouble. And now my attack is going to be justified. And what I'm hearing is I'm being threatened. I'm being threatened by this authority. So because of my unworthiness, this gives me the right to now threaten you. If you want to bring a threat to me, then quite simply, I'm going to start threatening you. Now, this is the old game that just keeps playing out. And it's like, all of a sudden, the thought comes into my mind, were you being threatened then? Yeah, you were being threatened. So now, all of a sudden, that's when he normally gets me. And now the energy is rising. Yeah. And let's really look at this story. Let's look at all of the things that were said that were against you, that were wrong, and you were treated unfairly. And now the next minute, the story's coming up. But this time, it was so beautiful because I just looked at it and thought, this is the exact same thing that plays out the whole time in my mind. It just consistently plays out. You've been threatened. You can threaten them back. And now I either choose to get into it, or I choose, hold on a minute, no. This is an old story. This isn't part of what's happening now. This has followed me from time and time again. So what do? Rather than keeping on to this grievance, I go and join with my brother and I share all my judgments so I can let them go, so I can be free. So that was the gift. That's actually the gift of being so close, wanting that together, and knowing that my brother wants that as much as me, and knowing that I want to support my brother through whatever grievances they have, and knowing that my brother wants to support me through these grievances. And so my brother came and I sent this message out, and I'm thinking, do I really want to let go of this? I'm not too sure what I want to hold on to, what I want to be right about. But I sent my message out anyway with all of this. And then as soon as I sent the message to join, it's like, it started to loosen. It started to like loosen up. Okay, it's not as real as I imagined. And my brother comes and joins me. Yeah, you want to express. And by this point, I'm like, actually, I'm not feeling the same as I did. And we just sat and shared. But I was just like, I was so grateful that I could share, because I knew that just a tiny little grain of sand in my mind is just enough to rock the boat. So it was so important just to really, really clear. And it was such a beautiful joining. And I just felt like, yeah, I really, really want to let that go, because these judgments can just like come in from any angle. So yeah, that's really the gift, is like to hand these things over as quick as we can. Don't sit on them. I actually sat on this for a night. It felt good actually to kind of reflect, because I felt like I was right as normal. And then okay, let's try and reflect on this a little bit more. Let's give a little bit more time. But in actual fact, and given the time to it, the ego was trying to come in, but I got to see the story. And it was like, what I found was really, really helpful was like, I'm not fearful of this pattern anymore. that was the thing. I was always fearful. Oh, this is going to go terrible. I'm going to get angry. The other person might get angry. This is not going to be good. We're going to fall out. Oh, I don't need this in my life. But this time I thought, no, it's just this scenario that's playing out for my healing. And I just feel like, great, I can't wait for the next time that this threat comes along, that I can say, yes, I can see you, and I'm not invested in you any longer. I know that this is this old game, and I really want done with it. So I feel so grateful that I put out this prayer to be dealing with this seeming anger issue and looking at all the facets of it. So this leads me on to bringing in Lilo. This is how it all began, is that there was a grievance with me, and maybe Lilo can share a bit more of this, and I can share a bit more of my part in this healing, which I didn't even know about. So I just feel so grateful that you're here, Lilo, and I always admire your willingness to step in. So I just feel so grateful that you're here, that we get to join with this, and your open-heartedness. So thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
So your grievance was actually with me.
I was like, why do I love this guy? I love him. No.
I was giving you a generous trigger, wasn't I?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was really, really beautiful. Yeah, we ended up like both putting up Svava's new album on the internet, and I was working on Bandcamp and you on Shopify or something, and Svava told me that I could reach out to you, so I did. And I texted Ken and I asked him for, can you send me all the details and the cover picture for her album. I'm working on it now, and I didn't get anything back. I think that was it. I didn't get anything back. It took like another hour or so that I started wondering, hey, he hasn't gotten back to me. Like, what's up with that? And
because also this isn't the first time that this has happened. That's like me not getting back to you. That it's been so funny that with our Slack channel, it's like I haven't seen your messages. They haven't even appeared. And it's only been by luck that I've actually gone onto your profile and seen that you'd messaged me and could message you. Yeah. So it's kind of like this thing of like, okay, he's not available for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and something just happened that I didn't feel like I could give him a call or something or reach out to him. Like I just thought like, oh, he hasn't gotten back to me. And this seems like such a small thing in a way. Like, oh, it's just a text, like just wait a couple hours or several hours, or he'll get back to me. But yeah, when you know both that you're on this right now on this project, there's something just so deep around like, hey, where are you? Well, like why if you're on something else, like if you don't have time right now, let me know or anything like that. Like that's what I wanted. Like I just wanted some clarity around what was going on, because I couldn't move forward. And so, well, I decided not to reach out to Ken, and so the evening went on, and I kept on having these thoughts in my mind, like, hey, he's not getting back to me. He never gets back to me. That happened before as well. Like it takes like all these thoughts, like it always takes so much time to get back to me. And so I was like blaming onto him. Like he must not like me or something. He must not think it's important to get back to me. Like I didn't trust him. Like, or I must not be good enough. And that's actually the compromise that happened there. Like, oh, it's just me. It's just Lilo. So, I mean, of course, he's not really going to get back to me. Like, there must be more important things or something. So I let that really completely take me over. Like, it convinced me so much that I decided not to get back to him and to ask him, hey, what's going on? Like, you haven't gotten back to me. Like, hours later, even, like, still I wasn't willing to reach out to him and to ask him, hey, because there's just this belief, all these beliefs, all this unworthiness that really convinces me. And I feel like that's what we practice here. Like, no, you're not unworthy. You're so worthy. So the moment you have a question in your mind, and that's why it seems like such a small thing, but it's not. I really start getting in touch with, like, oh, I have this question. I want clarity right now. And to give that to myself. And I wasn't willing. And so I went to bed, and then I think I woke up like an hour later or something. And in such terror, like, it seemed like bombs were going off. I don't know if someone was slamming the doors, or I don't know what actually happened, but I like woke up in terror, and I got kind of stuck in something there, like just feeling like, oh my gosh, someone could, I felt like I was gonna be robbed, or someone was gonna come in my room and rape me. Not anyone here in the house, but just like I had just such a belief. Like, all these images were just taking over, all this terror, all these beliefs. And I had no clue what was happening. All of a sudden, I thought I was in Iraq. I was like, bombs were all around me and people were gonna shoot me or something. Like, I had such a fear. I had no clue where that was coming from. And so I just got into this meditation and just really asking Spirit, like, you gotta help me here, because I am believing things that are seemingly like not even, like, it's not even possible. I was just in my room, in my bed, like, it's super quiet here, that nothing's happening, and there's no reason to feel such a fear. Like, I'm not in Iraq or something like that, and so I was just talking to Spirit, and then I heard, okay, take out Svava's album. And so I put on Svava's album, and I listened to the whole album, and I wouldn't fall asleep, but it really helped me to relax. And it's like Jesus was just speaking to me, being very gentle. Come back to me. Like, I'm here. You can let go. And eventually I felt like, okay, I'm not falling asleep, but I'm just really feeling like I want to get into function. I want to be like helpful. Like, I want to just go into something. And I had just this activation all of a sudden. I wasn't scared anymore. I just felt activated, really joyful all of a sudden. And so I went downstairs and I started doing some other things, and that felt really good. And then like half an hour later, I went to bed and I fell asleep. And then in the morning, we had a meditation and an expression session, and someone here asked me, hey, Lila, are there any grievances you wanna lift up or look at? And I felt more peaceful, and I thought, but there was still that coming up in my mind. And so I was like, yeah, actually, I do want to raise something up. This thing with Ken yesterday. And so expressing all that, and then also telling about my experience before I went to sleep, like all this terror. And so, yeah, Peter said, well, that really that's really interesting, or something like that. He said, like, look at the lesson of today. It was love holds no grievances.
Yeah.
And it was just so, it's like I didn't even, before I expressed it, we had listened to the lesson, and I hadn't even, it didn't like fully click or something. And when I expressed it, it was like fully saying, like, here, Spirit, I want to look at this fully. And then like it like just kind of came together, like the thing with Ken, and then what I experienced by waking up in terror. And then it's just, in the lesson it says that you don't even have a clue what those grievances in your mind, like the smallest grievance, or just the one grievance that can have such a big effect on, it's just, you're not in love. I'm not in love. And these grievances just take over, like all these beliefs, they draw forth all these images in my mind, these stories of being in Iraq, of someone harming me, whatever it looks like, that's possible. Just a grievance, like thinking that, like, I couldn't reach out to Ken. I couldn't ask for clarity. I wasn't worthy enough for that. I couldn't ask him, hey, what's going on? Like, it was really amazing to see. Like, I want to really tune in. And that first prompt that I have, I say yes to. Like, I'm gonna listen to you, Spirit, and ask for more clarity where it's needed. And
because it was interesting, wasn't it? Because I actually sent the message, but the message didn't go through due to the Wi-Fi.
Right.
So I actually did think that I'd responded.
That's the thing. It's like, it's such a perfect orchestration. Like, you can't even, I can't even judge the form, or like saying, like, why does this happen with him or with me, or whatever it is.
It was perfect for this. This was
Spirit
the generous trigger.
Wanted to bring this up. And it's like so funny, and just in not responding, all of that healing is actually there. Had I responded, okay, that would have been great, and you could have got on with the album, but not all this other stuff would have come up to be able to have this release and see that you are worthy and that you did want that connection. It's like my heart is just calling for something deeper and a closer connection, and really getting more in touch with it all, and so I can just raise it up. And and that's the form, apparently, that Spirit has chosen or orchestrated for us. And so I immediately, after that meeting, I think I reached out to you or something. That's where it happened. Like, I reached out to you and I said, like, hey, Ken, can we talk about this? And I'm just so grateful, for that I get to do this with you, and that I get to go through this with you. And like, hey, wouldn't that be funny to share on your show? Oh, another prompt, and I'm like joking about it.
It's like so beautiful. Like, I didn't even feel any of this, and you, okay, I really need to okay, what's going on? We just play our parts perfectly in this, and it was just, I'm so grateful that you had the courage just to be able to say that, so you can really let it go. Because I just feel this love for you and just love connecting with you, and want to support you. So it's like, I don't feel you're supporting me. Like, okay, wow, where's all this come from? But that's the joy of letting all this up, so you don't have to hold on to it. And in a way, I was thinking about, that's why we always come, we've got to keep coming closer together. Like you said, like, I probably heard the prompt to say, hey, did you get my message? And it's just like that other step towards the deeper connection with yourself, really. And what we do here, it's like you can feel it when there's just a slight, oh, I didn't want to say that, or that communication. And I remember you saying, no, I really want to communicate. I really want to connect more. And it's just showing us these little places where we didn't want to connect. And that's okay. I actually find those more important. I want to know where I don't want to connect rather than where I am connecting.
Yeah.
I want to see all those. So this is just another part that's being washed away, that we get to do together and see that nothing's really gone wrong.
Yeah. To really choosing to join in mind, and whatever that takes, whatever communication that takes, or it's just a question in mind that's like choosing for the separation, to like be separate. And
I was just thinking, like, us being in the studio, like when we're live like this, like we have to join in like a couple of times today. You like looked at me and we're completely there, because we can't just, okay, I'm not going to send that message now. It's like we have to be completely like that. And I thought, wow, that's just a beautiful symbol to say, okay, what if we do that all the time, no matter whether we're together, whether we can look at each other or not, but like, no, we're so together in our mind, and yes, I am worthy to reach out and have that deeper connection the whole time. But what I notice is it's just easy, I've only got to just drift off a little bit and I'm into another dimension.
Yeah, and then it draws forth all these images and this terror or whatever, like just the belief, separation, and whatever that looks like in the world. It was so clear. It was just all in my mind. Yeah, because I'm in here in my room.
Yeah, you just give that little opening to this, and the ego seems to come flooding in like it was trying to with me, right? There's this grievance, and now it's making a much bigger problem that seems really, really, really real. And that's why we have to catch that so soon. So in actual fact, that's why I feel so grateful, because this could have gone on for some time, but yet in a day, here we are. We get the chance to share that love holds no grievances. So what a gift. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Wow, we're almost near it. Wow, where did that time go? 2 minutes. Actually, I just have something to read that we could. Do you want to read the second part and I'll read the first part?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes and just go within, and we're joining this prayer. I give my life to God to guide today. Father, I give you all my thoughts today. I would have none of mine. In place of them, give me your own. I give you all my acts as well, that I may do your will instead of seeking goals which cannot be obtained and wasting time in vain imaginings. Today I come to you. I will step back and merely follow you. Be you the guide and I the follower, who questions not the wisdom of the infinite, nor love whose tenderness I cannot comprehend, but which is yet your perfect gift to me.
Today, we have one guide to lead us on. And as we walk together, we will give this day to him with no reserve at all. This is his day. And so it is a day of countless gifts and mercies unto us.
Wow. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming to join us today. Oh. Peace, brother. Oh, lots of love.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Lilo. I just love your transparency. You know, who would have thought that the healing was actually joining about a grievance? The ego certainly doesn't believe that, but that's what Spirit's teaching us. You know, if you have an issue, then join and just express from the heart your feelings. So beautiful examples of that. Thanks, guys. Hey, I'm feeling to continue on with the events because there's so many of them. And I just want to mention them, and maybe there's a little sparkle, and it'll send you on your way to a retreat or a gathering or a book signing somewhere. April the 5th through April the 21st, Kirsten and Francis will be in Japan. It's a retreat called Trust and Guidance. That's something to keep in mind. And of course, on April the 5th through the 7th, the next live online retreat, Prayer, the Medium of Miracles. And until March the 15th, there's an early bird special price. So if that's something that's on your mind, now's a good time. You've got 5 days to take advantage of the early bird pricing. And talk about world traveling. Kirsten is going to be in New Zealand, Guidance and Inner Listening. And that's on May the 4th. So that'll be great if you happen to be in that part of the world. Fantastic. May the 17th to the 19th is the Miracle Network Conference in Solihull in England. A New Generation Speaks, and Francis Zhu will be a guest speaker at that conference. And of course, coming up in June the 3rd through July 22nd, is the facilitated Rethinking Sickness program. I just experienced the last one. I'll be there for this one. Fantastic. Just a beautiful, beautiful healing. And I know that a number of the participants from last time are also thinking about coming again this time. So it's a beautiful, beautiful, I'm going to call it a workshop. It really is an online retreat, and it lasts from for over a month, June the 3rd through July the 22nd. Okay, that's all for me for now. See you in a few minutes. Bye for now.
Quantum expansion is what you need. It goes very deep. So join us here from wherever you are. There's no need to go anywhere. Just one click and you are here. Join us on Zoom. Let's get digital, digital. We want to get digital. Let's get into digital. Let us hear the Spirit talk. The Spirit talk. Let us hear the Spirit talk.
In this video, we're going to show you how to wake up with movies using MWGE. What we know about the mind is that it doesn't differentiate between the emotions it experiences while watching a movie and the emotions it experiences in day-to-day life. And that's how we're able to heal our mind with movies. You first want to pick a movie to watch that supports your spiritual awakening. You can do that using the Emotion Theme Index located under the Reviews drop-down menu. All of the movie reviews on MWGE are indexed by the emotions and main healing themes in the movie. At the top of the index page, we see the 8 main index categories of reviews. I have a block that I'm ready to remove from my life. I click on that category and I'm shown all of the block's topics. My issue is that I feel like a victim of the world and I'm ready to heal that belief. I click on victimization and I'm shown all of the reviews that have victimization as one of the healing topics covered in that movie. At this point, I'm able to browse through the movie reviews. I'm feeling a resonance with the movie Black Swan, so I first want to obtain the movie from a streaming video or DVD rental service. I also want to download the mind tools for use during the movie. I can find the mind tools under the Getting Started drop-down menu. When I'm ready to watch the movie, I'll read the review first. This helps me to stay focused on the movie's healing themes rather than getting lost in the storyline.
Attack it! Come on!
While watching Black Swan, I notice upsetting emotions come up when I see the main character Nina hurting herself. The upset is my cue to pause the movie and fill out a mind tool. If I can fill out a worksheet when I'm feeling the upset, I have a much better chance of getting it off the perceptual screen, where I'm in reaction mode, and back into my mind, where I can look at what the upsetting emotions are, what the upsetting thoughts are, and what the underlying beliefs are. Beneath all that is the desire to have something different than it is. If I can get down to that place in my mind where I can see that I'm desiring something other than peace, then I can choose again. And the miracle is that I can call upon Spirit to help me make that choice for present peace. The Instrument for Peace is another downloadable worksheet that takes you step by step through the process of clearing upsetting emotions. It's especially helpful if you have difficulty or feel resistance moving through any level of the mind when taking an upset back. While filling out a worksheet, you may also uncover other limiting beliefs, so you'll want to fill out as many worksheets as necessary until you feel complete. The power of using these mind tools with the movie reviews on MWGE is that it saves time in the awakening process. Rather than playing out painful dramas in your life, you can simply let the characters on the screen do it for you. With all of the subscription plans, you get the written movie reviews and the mind tools. With the ProPop subscription, you also get audio and video setups with many of the movie reviews so that you can go even deeper into the healing themes. With the MasterPop subscription, you also get our library of streaming metaphysical movie classics with commentary, as well as hundreds of clips highlighting the key healing scenes in movies. If you're ready to add some fun to your spiritual practice, subscribe by going to mwge.org. MWGE is movie watching with a purpose.
The book is called This Moment Is Your Miracle, and as I said, you're going to start hearing much more about it.
I'm not a big reader, but I can't put this damn book down.
It's all deep inquiry. It's about opening up.
An experience of our true self, an experience of peace.
Greg had read a portion of the book, and I felt so peaceful.
Exercises, practices that takes us in, all the way into the deepest practice of forgiveness.
I want to say how important that part is, because that's our way to connect and to surrender into that safety, that peace that the Holy Spirit is guaranteeing us.
Welcome back, everyone. Up next, it's Andy with Modern Mystics. Take it away, Andy.
Thank you, Jeff. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Modern Mystics with me, Andy, and Jesus, who's right here with me too. And yeah, I was just, it's fun with these shows because it's like I'm just in prayer all week, just as a practice with the mind training. And almost never do I get any information about what I'm supposed to speak on the show until like the morning of or the night before. So I was just, during Ken's show, I was sitting on the toilet and I was praying. And then I heard, okay, unworthiness and this need not be. And then I remember there's a beautiful quote in that chapter, this need not be, in the course about unworthiness. And yeah, of course, it's like, that's basically how I base the show. It's like, okay, what's the theme for my mind? Like, what is it for me, so that I can speak to that and see what the Holy Spirit has to say to help heal whatever that seems to be that needs to be healed. And yeah, so I just thought I would speak about unworthiness today. And if any of you have seen the movie Aquaman, that was a really beautiful movie about unworthiness and how Aquaman needed to accept his inheritance and bring the undersea, underwater Atlantis world and the Earth worlds together. So kind of like bridging the gap and bringing the split mind into wholeness again. And he could only do that through accepting his inheritance, but he had so much unworthiness. He was like, no, that's not for me. And, he just had so much unworthiness. And really the only way he could move through that is by moving towards the worthiness. And what is that? Like, how do you move towards worthiness? All it is following the Holy Spirit's prompts. So, it's like we fully have devoted ourselves to this awakening. And then because of that desire, then we can hear the Holy Spirit clearly. And then we just start following his guidance and following the prompts. And then by following the prompts, that's how you heal the mind. You follow the prompts, you experience miracles, and you just burn away the unworthiness. So that's why it's so important just to move towards whatever it is that the Holy Spirit has given you as part of his plan, as part of his guidance. And then, so it really is that simple. It's like, okay, follow my prompts, follow the guidance, what's given me. So even one example was like, last night we came all together here in the studio and we do some test calls and see how each other's sets look, Utah and here in Mexico. And I was already feeling this unworthiness because I was just moving through it. Like that's the theme in the mind. And we were just looking at the set in Utah, and something happened where I just like kind of withdrew, and I sank more into this unworthiness. And it was like, this need not be. Like the prompt in the moment was actually, okay, be active, like be involved. It's like, don't feed the unworthiness. Like you have to move towards whatever's given you, like follow the prompts. And what is it right now? Like, what would you have me do right now, Holy Spirit? It's like, okay, so I'm part of the studio team here now. Actually, I don't know if I told everyone, but yeah, I'm part of the Mexico studio team here, which is really inspiring. And yeah, so when we had that meeting last night, it's like, okay, accept the means, move towards it, speak up, follow your prompts, and that's how you'll burn away the unworthiness. But it's like I was saying, I think on the last show, it's like when communication's held back, then it's almost like it reinforces whatever is already going on in the mind from the ego's perspective, like it's unworthiness. So it's like I held back and I wasn't so involved, and then I just felt more and more unworthy. And it's like, no, it's like move towards whatever's given, communicate if you need to, follow the prompts, and then and then the unworthiness will just burn away. And I remember it was so beautiful because I think like a year ago, or a long time ago or something, I was on Facebook and I saw Deanna Markin's Facebook status, and it said, unworthiness is a decision. And I was like, wow, okay. Bold statement. Okay, great. Unworthiness is a decision. It didn't really land at the moment and in that moment. And so it just came to mind again today when I was praying right before the show. And it's like, okay, unworthiness is a decision. Okay. And then what also came to mind was this chapter, This Need Not Be, which is really, it feels like it's talking about exactly that. So yeah, this is chapter 4, The Illusions of the Ego. Great title. And then section 4, This Need Not Be. And it's very straightforward, and I think that's why I love it so much. So it starts off saying, if you cannot hear the voice for God, it is because you do not choose to listen. That you do listen to the voice of your ego is demonstrated by your attitudes, your feelings, and your behavior. Yet this is what you want. This is what you are fighting to keep and what you are vigilant to save. So I feel like that's so important because it's like there's this video on YouTube called Desire is Prayer with Dave, and it's so beautiful because he's just saying, well, he's basically saying, you know, when you pray, that's what true prayer is. It strengthens your desire, and it's the same as desire. But even it's like a common question is like, how do I hear the Holy Spirit's voice? Like, how do I hear the Holy Spirit's voice? Like, how do I discern between the Holy Spirit's voice and the ego's voice? And really it just comes back to desire. Like, that's really all it is. Like, if you really desire to hear the Holy Spirit's voice and you really desire to hear those prompts and guidance, then you will hear it. And I just remember like a few years ago before I came to this community, I had a split desire, and I talked about this a lot. You know, I was doing the business and then I was going to the gym and I wanted to have huge muscles and whatever. And then I remember one day, so I had been going to the gym for a while. It was like 6 years, and near the end of it, you know, so I was like reading the course more and more, watching David's videos more and more, and having these mystical experiences. I'm not a body, you know, all those transcendent experiences. But then at the same time, I was going to the gym 3 times a week, and then looking at my biceps and, you know, like doing the deadlift and all that kind of stuff. So it's like there's like, and then like trying to build this body. So there's clearly like a split in desire, you know. It's like, okay, course is saying one thing, I'm doing another thing. So it's like there's not a full desire. So if I had asked like, why don't I hear the Holy Spirit that well? It's like, well, it's obvious because my desire is split. So I remember one day, yeah, it was like the workouts were getting more and more painful. Like I would go to the gym, and then I would come home and I would be in like a lot more pain than usual. Like, you know, I was used to the sore muscles and the recovery and stuff, but it was like a lot more than usual. So I was like, and then my, pain, tight neck. And I was like, I had perfect form in the gym. So I knew it wasn't anything behavior wise that I could change. And so eventually, it just got too painful. And I was like, okay, I think the Holy Spirit's feeling for me to just stop going to the gym. And so one day I was just in the middle of the workout, and then I was just like, you know what? Like, I can't finish this workout. Like, what's the purpose? What's the point? And I was having these experiences in the gym too, where all of a sudden I was the whole gym, basically. Like, I would just be working out, and then I would just pause, and then I would look around the gym, and then all of a sudden my mind would just fill the whole gym and like just fill everything. And I'll be like, whoa. So it was like, and then, one day I just, middle of the workout, I was like, I'm not going to do this. I can't do this. So, and I didn't say really in that moment, I'm quitting the gym forever, but all I knew is I need to leave the gym right now. And it was like, what would you have me do right now? That's what the guidance always is. So I walked out of the gym, and instead I just went for a long walk. And then instantly, like following that prompt to leave the gym, miracles were flooding in, like instantly. And I would just walk down this beautiful like path outside. And even the gym itself was like underground. It was dark. There's no windows. You can't see outside. And it's like, terrible, right? It's like just a symbol of where my mind was at when I was choosing the ego and doing that workout with that purpose. And then, so yeah, I just walked out, beautiful sunny day, like this beautiful path with the trees all touching each other. And then, yeah, I was just walking down this path, and every person that I would walk across, or like we would walk by each other, I would just look at them in the eye, and just, even if it was just for a split second, it was just like this beautiful connection. Like, and then I would just hear like, see the kingdom in your brother. And then beautiful experience every time someone walked by. And then, yeah, and it was just such a immediately like this mystical experience was just happening. And then it was getting a little dark, and then I was really hearing the Holy Spirit so clearly, because I really had that strong desire. So I could hear like, okay, walk down this street, walk down that street. And then even like I walked past a synagogue, and then when I walked past, Jesus said, turn around and walk past it again. And I was like, why would I do that? But it's like, don't question the guidance. Like, I do not know what anything is for. So it's like, okay, I'll walk past it again. Then I walked past again, and then I could see, oh, okay, I have some beliefs and judgments about synagogue and religion and the people there, or whatever. And I was like, the reason why I was supposed to walk by was so that I could see those thoughts clear. And then I just gave them over. It's like, okay, I want to be wrong about these beliefs. Gave them over. And so it was really like, I do not know what anything is for. And that was just a beautiful example of following the guidance, following the prompts. And the prompts always lead to healing. And that's really the way you heal your mind, by following guidance, by following the Holy Spirit's voice. And that comes from having a strong desire. So yeah, I never went back to the gym after that day. And lo and behold, the pain started to lessen and lessen with my tight neck and whatever. And I didn't have to go to the chiropractor so much anymore. And it's funny because, you know, in the world, it's like, what do you mean? You're supposed to go to the gym, strengthen your muscles so that your posture gets better and your body gets stronger so you're in less pain. It's like, no, what leads to less pain is following the Holy Spirit's guidance. So it had nothing to do with the gym. I was just following that guidance, and then the pain lessened. Yeah, because that's really what the pain is. It's like not knowing who you are. That's really what the pain really is. It's like, I never know, what's that lesson? It's like, I don't know the reason why I'm upset. It's like the first lesson. Or yeah, it's like, you never know why really you're upset. Never upset for the reason I think. There we go. And so, yeah, it's just remembering that. So then just to continue, it says, yeah, and then also it's really being honest with yourself too, because I know I've heard a lot like, well, I do want the Holy Spirit's guidance. Like, I really do. And it's like, but we really have to be really honest with ourselves. And it's like it's like a lighthouse in our mind that has to make a full sweep of light all around. It's like, well, what do I have any goals or pursuits or ambitions in the world that don't align with the inspiration and the Holy Spirit? Like, for the ego's purpose, like for the ego's purpose of the body, which is three things. It's pain, pride, pleasure, and attack. Those are like the three purposes the ego has for the body: pride, pleasure, and attack. So it's like, if I'm going towards anything in the world with any of those three purposes, it's like, that's still the ego. And then if I ask, okay, so why aren't I hearing the Holy Spirit's voice? It's because there's still a split desire. And it's like, we have to have a unified desire and really have like it says right here, single, unequivocal call. Yeah, actually, this is the section before I just caught my eye. It says, I will come in response to a single, unequivocal call. So it's like, yeah, that's why it's so important. It's like, okay, let me see what is it that I want. Like, there's this exercise in mysticalmindtraining.org that says, list all your desires, you know, and then you just write them all down and you clear your mind, all of your desires, even if you think you don't want them, just write them down, and it really clears the mind. It's because we don't want to hold any idols. We don't want to hold anything that's going to block the Holy Spirit's voice from reaching us. And so, yeah, so we can just let that sink in for a second. Yeah, so it says, so it's saying the voice of your ego is what you're fighting to keep and what you're vigilant to save. Your mind is filled with schemes to save the face of your ego, and you do not seek the face of Christ. The glass in which the ego seeks to see its face is dark indeed. How can it maintain the trick of its existence except with mirrors? But where you look to find yourself is up to you. And it's not really to be harsh on yourself either. It's not like to start beating yourself up like, oh, I don't want God, I'm terrible, and this and that. It's like, no, it's like the Spirit is still gentle, so anytime you feel any kind of harshness in your mind or any kind of like push, or like I need to kill this ego, or I need to attack this ego and kill it, and you're just being like harsh with yourself and beating yourself up, it's remembering that actually the truth is gentle. The truth is always gentle. And the Holy Spirit is gentle, and it's only the ego that's harsh. It's like, yeah, sometimes the Holy Spirit, he's firm, but he's never harsh. And there's never a justification for beating yourself up or like fighting against sin, like it says in the Course. There's never a justification for that. So it's also remembering that, like, while I'm reading this section, it's like, it's okay. It's like, we just need to be just honest with ourselves, but it's okay. It's like Ken Wapnick used to always say, like, the problem is really just that we're too serious. And even in the Course, it says, it was a tiny mad idea that the Son of God remembered not to laugh. It was like really the only seeming issue was that thought was taken too seriously. So it says here, second paragraph, I have said that you cannot change your mind by changing your behavior, but I have also said, and many times, that you can change your mind. When your mood tells you that you have chosen wrongly, and this is so whenever you are not joyous, then know this need not be. In every case you have thought wrongly about some brother God created, and are perceiving images your ego makes in a darkened glass. Think honestly what you have thought that God would not have thought, and what you have not thought that God would have you think. Search sincerely for what you have done and left undone accordingly, and then change your mind to think with God's. This may seem hard to do, but it is much easier than trying to think against it. Your mind is one with God's. Denying this and thinking otherwise has held your ego together, but has literally split your mind. As a loving brother, I am deeply concerned with your mind, and urge you to follow my example as you look at yourself and at your brother, and see in both the glorious creations of a glorious Father. So when he says, follow my example, it's really like, it's forgiveness. It's like practicing that forgiveness. As you look at yourself and at your brother. And I've spoken about this too. It's like, it's like with projection. In a sense, projection is really helpful because then you can actually see what is in your mind that you have projected out. So, it's like as you look at yourself and at your brother. So it's like all these beliefs that you think of yourself, maybe about body image or judgments or or whatever, or my nose could be better, or my lips, or whatever it could be. It's like those are all just beliefs and judgments, and then it's the same, and at your brother. It's like everything we believe about our brother really is what we believe about ourselves and God. So that's why it's so important to just see, okay, what do I actually believe about my brother? And that's why the Holy Spirit will lead us to certain ones. And that's why it says, and now you will not go on alone. Mighty companions will go with you. It's like, because this is a path of relationships. And because our brother is our mirror. So it's really using that. And then it says, when you are sad, know this need not be. Depression comes from a sense of being deprived of something you want and do not have. Remember that you are deprived of nothing except by your own decisions, and then decide otherwise. So that's like the responsibility for sight section in the course. Really taking it back to my mind, like everything I experience is what I want to experience. And then remembering that also washes away like the victim identity in the mind, which is also linked in with that unworthiness, actually. So it says, when you are anxious, realize that anxiety comes from the capriciousness of the ego, and know this need not be. You can be as vigilant against the ego's dictates as for them. When you feel guilty, remember that the ego has indeed violated the laws of God, but you have not. Leave the, quote, sins of the ego to me. That is what atonement is for. But until you change your mind about those whom your ego has hurt, the atonement cannot release you. While you feel guilty, your ego is in command, because only the ego can experience guilt. This need not be. So it's even saying, like, you don't need to feel guilty. It's like, this need not be. Just follow the guidance, follow the prompts, and like move towards whatever you're supposed to move towards. And yeah, it's like, this need not be. So it's like all of this will be undone by guidance. The guilt, the unworthiness, the anxiety, the depression. It says, watch your mind for the temptations of the ego and do not be deceived by it. It offers you nothing. When you have given up this voluntary dispiriting, you will see how your mind can focus and rise above fatigue and heal. Yet you are not sufficiently vigilant against the demands of the ego to disengage yourself. This need not be. The habit of engaging with God and His creations is easily made if you actively refuse to let your mind slip away. The problem is not one of concentration. It is the belief that no one, including yourself, is worth consistent effort. Side with me consistently against this deception, and do not permit this shabby belief to pull you back. The disheartened are useless to themselves and to me, but only the ego can be disheartened. Maybe we can just take a minute to let all this sink in so far. See if we have anything come to mind or any insights. Okay. So I'm actually going to skip ahead to the last paragraph of this section. And it says, I do not attack your ego. I do work with your higher mind, the home of the Holy Spirit, whether you are asleep or awake, just as your ego does with your lower mind, which is its home. I am your vigilance in this, because you are too confused to recognize your own hope. I am not mistaken. Your mind will elect to join with mine, and together we are invincible. You and your brother will yet come together in my name, and your sanity will be restored. I raise the dead by knowing that life is an eternal attribute of everything that the living God created. Why do you believe it is harder for me to inspire the dispirited or to stabilize the unstable? I do not believe that there is an order of difficulty in miracles. You do. I have called, and you will answer. I understand that miracles are natural because they are expressions of love. My calling you is as natural as your answer and as inevitable. Wow, it's so beautiful. Because there's like this unworthiness or whatever that seems to be in the mind, but then it's like, this need not be. It's like unworthiness is a decision. And then it's saying, Jesus is saying, listen, like, I am your vigilance in this. I am not mistaken. And he's like, your mind will elect to join with mine, and together we are invincible. And then he's like, listen, I raised the dead. Why do you think it's harder for me to inspire the dispirited or to stabilize you if you're unstable? Like, I don't believe there's an order of difficulty in miracles, but you do. But I've called you and you will answer. So it's like, okay, I can agree with that. I can line up with that. And then he's like, yeah, my calling you is as natural as your answer and as inevitable. So it's like, you cannot mess this up. And it's not even on you, actually. It's all it is just, it's just in every moment. It's like, okay, Holy Spirit, what would you have me do? Listening and following. But then even with the listening and following, it's like, you don't even have to do it, actually. It's like, there's just a desire to listen to the Holy Spirit and then a desire to follow the instructions. But when you follow, it's not even you that does it, it's him who does it. And it says in the Course, how could it be hard to do the task that Christ has appointed you if it is he who does it? So it's literally like, that's what I need to do nothing is. It's really like, all we need to do is have a little willingness. All we need is a desire to be happy. And then after that, it's like, okay, I have a desire. I really want to be happy, to be joyful. So I will listen to you and then I will follow. But it's not even at that point, it's not even the personal self. So yeah, it's just really beautiful. And I'm really inspired about how simple this all is. I know Francis always talks about like, all it is guidance, like following those prompts. So yeah, I think our time is just about up, and thank you guys so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next Sunday at whatever time this started at, 11 o'clock. It was, what was it, 9:30? 10:30 MST. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Yeah, I love the messages as they come through. I love how direct Jesus is. I have called, and you will answer. Pretty straightforward, isn't it? There's no question in that, no doubts, nothing. It's just very, very straightforward. So thank you, Andy. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Spiri.ai is coming to mind. I've been thinking about it all morning. It's a beautiful portal to all of our shows and to certainly to the Spiri bot and to the the Spiri AI app. So have a look and check it out. If you haven't been there in a while, it's a great resource, something well worth having a look at. And mwge.org. I'm now blessed with putting together a newsletter every month, and I love it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to listen to prompts, because I've been doing it for a little while, and sometimes it's like, oh, what am I going to do the next? What's the theme going to be? And one of the mighties said, well, why don't you make the theme of the newsletter what the next retreat's going to be? And I went, hey, great idea. So I tried that last month, and it worked really well. I think I'll do the same again this month. The MWGE newsletter comes out about the 20th of each month. If you haven't subscribed, please go to our website and subscribe to the newsletter. It's very informative, and it's a lot of fun to put together and to share. Okay, I think that's it for me. Coming up next is From the Bottom Up in a few minutes. I'll see you when that time slot occurs. Time slot occurs. Okay, see you soon. Bye.
It's so far beyond the personal. And yet, while you believe in the personal and you're opening your heart to this vast love, the words and the symbols can reach your heart in helpful ways. There's really nothing but just beautiful, pure simplicity that's always just what is. The truth is simple. The present moment is simple. While you still have connotations and meaning and interpretations around it, then words like scarcity and lack and funds and so on and so forth, it's really being in the gratitude so fully that everything else just fades from awareness. A lot of times people think of spirituality or spiritual journey as like, be happy, and you can't consistently be happy until you get in touch with what's unhappy.
Good tidings, good tidings, good tidings. This moment is your miracle. 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 Not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, or not next year, but this moment is your miracle. Yes, this moment is your miracle. This moment is your miracle. Miracle, miracle, miracle. This moment is your miracle.
Can you tell me what it is you feel is helpful about this doorway for those coming to it? It's wide open. What do you feel is helpful for them?
Yeah, well, this doorway, it seems to be hidden to the everyday perceptions of the world, the linear perceptions. So it's almost like an esoteric doorway into mysticism, and it can be quite disturbing to the ego. So I would say don't be alarmed as you come close to this doorway, because the ego may have some reactions. But it's a very gracious doorway. It's God's love and grace coming into awareness. And there still seems to be steps to take. The mind is very addicted to linear time, and so it has to come in a form of steps. But each step leads happily on to the next step and the next. And with each step inward that you take through this doorway or through this portal or gateway, every step gets lighter and lighter. And you become less aware of the elements of time and space. So in order to come into experience of God's grace, you have to meet the conditions of grace. You can't bring judgments through the portal. You can't bring these attachments of the past into the portal. You have to leave them at the door. And so in that sense, it's a very light journey as you enter into the portal. You get lighter and lighter because you're not carrying the weight of past thoughts and beliefs and perceptions.
Welcome back, everyone. Up next, the return of From the Bottom Up with Jason.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the new season of From the Bottom Up. I'm here live right now, and David is, his plane got delayed an hour and a quarter. And this was the one Sunday that he was going to be able to join with me in the next few weeks live. So I have, I had a call the other day with Helena about some vaccination and healthcare thoughts, and I put together a 15-minute clip that we're going to play soon in preparation for him coming, and then he'll join us on the set, and we'll continue on after that clip. But yeah, first of all, I just wanted to say it's good to be back, and back on Sunday. I had tried to organize this for Saturday so I could play clips, but so much going on in the ministry right now, this just seemed like the simplest and easiest way to continue to extend. So yeah, it's been pretty full on with healing. And one of the stories that I'm going to get into with David when he gets here is this idea of pressure. And I listened to Lilo talking today about the fear coming up around Iraq, and Andy talking about need not be and unworthiness. And I feel like my topics today are going to be right in line with that. The other day when the studio team was kind of all ready to go for filming, but so much was going on, I was feeling this pressure, like how do I decide what it is to do? Do I grab David and we go do some shots? Do I go for this walk? Do I finish editing my previous shows? There was this pressure coming even around some kind of seemingly benign decisions, like who wouldn't want to talk with David? But as part of Deanna stepping in more with David and me kind of giving over, I want to say control, but it's probably not the right word, just giving over like a deeper trust. And she's been giving me suggestions to join with different people as all of the decisions that I've been doing have just been taken off. So I was sitting there with this pressure, and she called me. And at first I didn't answer because I thought I've got to make this decision first, and I can't really give an update right now. And after about 8 minutes, I called her back, and just in case there was another reason she was calling, and she just was tuned in with the Spirit and said, actually, I feel I'm calling to let you know that I feel you shouldn't do any more recording today. There's a lot going on, because she had a big picture. And all of a sudden, this weight just lifted, and I felt all this love and pressure release. And I was like, oh, wow. And now I got to go tell David that I can't do the episode with him, you know, projecting the disappointment onto him. But he was just fine with it. So I kind of excitedly just went for a walk. And I was heading up to the mountains, and it had just snowed, so there was all of this snow everywhere. So all the trails that a few weeks ago had gone on, I couldn't go because I went a few steps and my feet just sunk right in. So I was sitting there in the car just praying about where am I going to walk? And all of a sudden I look around, and there's this moose walking by me on the road. And I looked it up later, and a moose is a symbol of following guidance, trusting they use the term elders in your journey, and also that a stability in mind. And this joy really is the only thing that is stable. And my mind was so expansive and so joyful, knowing that the only thing I was to be doing was to be right there in that moment. And then this moose walks by. And so I thought, okay, maybe I'm to walk along the road. And so for about 2 kilometers, he and I just walked back and forth. But I'm going to play a little video for you showing the discovery of this and kind of wondering if I was to be alongside of him, because you don't do this. I've seen 3 moose in my life, even living near the Canadian Rockies, going back and forth, seeing elk and bears and the moose. You'd always just kind of stay away. So Susanna was beautiful when I came back, because she's like, why? Why would you stay away? Like with this complete innocence, as if, what's the difference between a wild animal and a domestic animal? So anyways, here's a clip of my encounter with the moose. Some of you might have seen it on Facebook, but I thought I'd just play this for some fun to start out here. Friendly moose. Not quite sure what's happening here, but the guy just drove away and a friendly moose is coming. Hello. Hello. Hi. Okay, I have to admit that was scary. Okay, well, so that was kind of a fun encounter, and I ended up walking about maybe 6 kilometers together, or 3 kilometers, and then I turned around and went back. But it was, yeah, it was just a beautiful reminder of the Spirit's always with me. So, yeah. Well, the next thing I'd like to talk about is this past week. Well, some of you might have been on the online retreat. I think it was last weekend. And Helena from Canada brought up the topic of vaccinations. And I don't know if I covered in this clip, but I had always grown up with this idea that vaccinations were basically evil. It's an extreme word, but since it's of the ego, let's just say it's evil. And although I'd gotten a couple when I was a kid, anything future, we were told not to, and I'd even gone to other countries with documents that were forged saying I'd had certain ones because I had other doctors that would sign it that were against it. So there's always this controversy of whether they're good and bad. And I didn't know if it was still in my mind, and then Helena brought that up. And then all of a sudden I'm seeing all these articles on Yahoo and even a video from this kid who's testifying about being against those who are against vaccines. So I'd like to just play with you this clip that, first of all, the clip starts with a video of this, I think, 20-year-old who basically had been not given vaccinations by his mother, who was what they call an anti-vaxxer. And then when he kind of, there's a word for it, got himself free from his parents, there's a word, but he decided to go get his shots. But before he did, he ended up getting measles and was so angry. So he got asked to testify in court. And so this is meant to kind of spark some thoughts in the mind. And then I've got a talk with David and I and Helen and I. So this will be about 15 minutes. You can enjoy, and we'll see you back here quickly.
Thank you, Chairman Alexander, Senator Murray, and distinguished committee members for the opportunity to speak today. Good morning, everyone. As was stated, my name is Ethan Lindenberger, and I'm a senior at Norwalk High School. And my mother is an anti-vax advocate that believes vaccines cause autism, brain damage, and do not benefit the health and safety of society, despite the fact such opinions have been debunked numerous times by the scientific community. I went my entire life without numerous vaccines against diseases such as measles, chickenpox, or even polio. However, in December 2018, I began catching up on my missed immunizations despite my mother's disapproval, eventually leading to this story and being able to speak here today, and I'm very happy for that, so thank you.
I was talking with Helena today about vaccinations, because yesterday there's these 2 articles on the internet about vaccinations, and they actually had some kind of Congress meeting or something like that about, I don't know, basically whether they make this new rule that all the kids have to get it or not. And I mean, when I grew up, this like 20 years ago, 30 years ago now, these were conversations that were so rare, my parents were like fighting against them, and so I didn't end up getting vaccinated. But I saw this kid, this 20-year-old kid, saying how it's all misinformation, these anti-vaxxers, and you do need to get your vaccinations. And he was so clear about his guidance, and it was just really kind of wonderful. That's what he wanted to do. Great. It was in integrity, you know. So I saw this video and this article, and I sent it to Helena. We had this talk, which I've recorded, and I'll probably play.
Yeah, how it played out for me is like, I take it seriously what Jesus is saying in the Course, and so I want to get the healing. And so when I was, you know, when I hear false cause and effect, and I understand that from an intellectual perspective, it's like, okay, so vaccines do not create the health or protect the body from these illnesses, is like what he's saying, right? And so how it played out for me is with the kids, I was like, oh, I don't want to reinforce false cause and effect. I don't want to reinforce the illusion. So I didn't want to get the vaccines. It was like this decision I made for the healing of my mind. And also, I thought, I don't want to reinforce illusion for them. Like, so I don't want to teach them, you know, why are we going to the doctor? Why are we getting these shots? Oh, because, you know, you would explain it like, oh, we're getting these to protect you from, you know, diseases or virus sickness. And it's like, I don't want to say that. I don't want to reinforce the illusion and false cause and effect. So like, I was making the decision, and I didn't see that. I couldn't see that. And yeah, it's like so humbling how I've had to really let go of my healing, and and the guidance was unexpected. It was like, actually, you're gonna get them vaccinated because it's for peace of mind. Like, and it wasn't what I expected, you know. He's leading me from the bottom up, and I'm not in charge of that. And where I'm hooked and making a hard decision, it's like he's always trying to loosen me from that. Like as if I know. And yeah, and he was just like, it's the healing of your mind, and they're included in that, you know. So you're not going to be hurting them or reinforcing something for them. It's like, if I'm guiding you for the healing of your mind, they're not going to get hurt by it.
It was really beautiful, her miracles around the vaccinations. How she's guided to just do it, because all these people just kept saying to her, you should have your kids been vaccinated, have your, you know, all these witnesses. And when you start to get that at some point, you know, maybe it's not always just fear, but it's, why not go for what's easy? So she felt that as guidance, and so she did it. And it just felt light and easy, and then...
Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely going from the bottom up, and I can't predict, wow, it's like, it's just super humbling, because I don't know the way it's going to go. And it was for peace of mind, because what was happening so much was everybody started to ask me, teachers and institutions, and it was happening at every doctor's visit. Are they up on their shots? Are they updated on their shots? And, you know, I went through an entire healing with Zach, and then the twins came along, and I was delaying with them. I wasn't even noticing it, but there was obviously an unconscious fear there of going through that again. And I kept getting asked by everybody, are they up on their shots? And I'm like, no, they're a little bit behind schedule, you know. And so what was happening is I was getting triggered by this every time, and it was actually not peaceful for me. And so the Spirit was guiding me to something that was most peaceful. So getting the shots done, it was for peace of mind, and then it just laid the entire issue at rest for me. And I was like, oh, okay, it was just done. It was not talked about. It wasn't an issue in my life anymore. It was just off the table, so he could use me more fully, and I was more like relaxed, and I was at peace. So I never would have expected that. Like, I never would have thought that he would guide me to get vaccines done. So, but yeah, that's helpful for me because it's about my peace of mind, and I don't know what the solution is, and I don't know what's practical.
I wanted to bring this whole context of Helena and the vaccinations in with you, and just see if you had any depth around this whole controversy kind of thing. So.
Yeah, I think within the dream world, there seems to be these different levels, and there's things that seem to be practical, and beyond the vaccinate or don't vaccinate question, you know, even if we just lifted what's right above that issue is healthcare. And of course, Jesus teaches us in the Course that health is inner peace, that health comes from your purpose, that health comes from being aligned with your source. Health has nothing to do with the body at all. It's just like sickness. He tells us sickness has nothing to do at all to do with the body. That's like for the human race to hear from Jesus that sickness has absolutely, positively nothing to do with the body, that's a big slam. Of course, this is the guy that said, Lazarus, come forth. And maybe he is a little more tuned in here to reality than the whole human race. But that's a lot, that sickness doesn't have to do with the body. And what comes out in the Course where Jesus don't ask the Holy Spirit to heal the body. Ask the Holy Spirit to heal your perception of the body. But don't ask the Holy Spirit to heal the body. That's not even something that the Holy Spirit understands. Ask to have the perception of the body healed. And if the only way to have the perception of the body healed is to have the purpose for the body and the world healed from many things that bodies are used for. And believe me, they are in the ego's fragmented perception. Bodies are used for many different things. Millions, billions of different things. And then the Holy Spirit only sees it as a communication device for what? To go beyond the body, to expand your perception, to go beyond the body, go back to your divine mind, you know, to the sense that everything is mine. So that's huge. That just the very definition, if you take it up to healthcare, to vaccinate or not to vaccinate, and then you go, okay, it's a healthcare issue. For example, let's use, since it's from the bottom up, let's not get too ethereal and too abstract. Let's just jump into healthcare. That's a great topic, especially when you're talking about vaccinations. That's healthcare. That's under the topic of healthcare, in the world at least. So in healthcare, you know, there are those that say, you know, with all the resources we have in this world, why don't we do more like they have in Europe? Like they have, you know, when you're with a country, you know, you have these resources, and they take the taxes, and they say, healthcare, health of human beings is important. Let's use our taxes and give healthcare and pharmacy and pay for things and existing conditions and deformed bodies and all that. Let's just use that because that's just a good use of money. That's just a relative value, but it's saying that's what we'd like to do. And so you can have people living in these countries going, yeah, the healthcare is pretty good. I mean, we pay it in taxes, but we love it because it's covered. We don't have to have this big panic like, Canada, Holland, Belgium, you know, go over Scandinavia, you know, they're like this. And then another perception of healthcare is, you know, it's like, you know, it's people have to fend for themselves, you know. If they get sick, if they die, you know, it's like build wealth, capitalism, go to the moon. I mean, there's just a few other values. Let's do this. Let's go to the moon. Let's do this. Let's do this. And then it's like, it's, you know, it's not so important. Then someone comes along and says, you know, well, maybe we should have health care for everyone. And
we're not a socialist.
Oh, bloody murder! It's a socialist, and this is the very thing over here that seems quite wise and reasonable is seen as, oh, that's socialism. It runs against the core of capitalism and against the core of all these things. There's so many perceptions in the world of healthcare, but what's the one commonality in those perceptions? That they all involve the body. And then the way shower, the way, the truth, the life comes along. The one who actually is aware, who's transcended all of those egoic beliefs, and says health is inner peace, and says health is not of the body, health is of the mind. It is with your thoughts alone that we must work. I mean, you need a purification here. You need to release egoic beliefs and thoughts. Here comes the way, the truth, and life with all of the answers, including for healthcare. You know, he's not shying away from any topic from the bottom up. He is here to correct things from the bottom up. And you can see how different that is. So really, it's a question of trust. It's a question of prayer. It's a question of, are you willing to take responsibility for your state of mind, which includes your experience with everything in the world, including the body. So if you come to a place of non-judgment, then you'll have inner peace, you'll have harmony, you'll have happiness, peace, joy. It all comes from that clarity, from forgiveness, from true forgiveness. And there's the way shower giving it. So that's what we do from the bottom up, is you address things. That's what Helena was talking about initially, was she was bringing up the question like, I'm practicing guidance. And if you start getting symbols around here and there, you should do this, you should do, those can be signs and symbols. Even on the God Unfriended Me show.
God Friended Me.
Or God Friended Me. That was one episode where unfriended. But God friended me, and then there's all these things around what should I do with my life, what about my career, what about my relationships, that are all kind of included in that guidance. And I like to watch the symbols that are around, you know, especially about the two characters that are collaborating, and they have all these people around him like, you guys would be amazing together, and have you ever thought of being together? And
we're not there yet.
Ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. It comes around and around and around.
The right time, you know?
Yeah, it's the right timing. So, you know, that's where the discernment comes in, and that is practical, to start to ask with these things, you know, what is my guidance? Because that's where you start to connect with true cause and effect. You start to bring things back to the mind, and yet you still seem to take actions, but they're guided actions. They're not just haphazard, hit or miss kind of things.
Very different. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Okay, hi everyone. Back, David's made it. He's virtually appeared from San Diego, I guess.
Yeah.
How was the trip?
Oh, it's great. From palm trees to winter wonderland, you know, with lots of delays and so forth, mechanical difficulties. But yeah, it made it.
Anything highlights stand out from the trip? Because you did a day gathering, right? And
yeah. Our friend Rita came and brought her group down from Huntington Beach, LA, and then there was some friends of mine from Georgia, John and Camille, they were some 1990s friends.
Way.
They showed up. So I did a bit in the afternoon. I was comparing my life to Star Trek, all the different. I said the original was in the 1980s, then the next generation was in the 1990s, and then the 2000 Deep Space Nine, and so I don't even know what I'm into now, but I call them the millennials. We talked a lot about the millennials and reaching the younger people who are coming faster into an awareness that, you know, that the world holds nothing. I said, they're living less than 128. The world I see holds nothing that I want. So yeah, we had it was very lively.
They're the Voyager episode.
Yeah. So I did mention times then some of these people had never heard of me, so they talked about the Matrix Redux, and one woman was like, so what have I got to do to see this Matrix composite movie? And I said, I don't know, it might be on Movie Watcher's Guide with some commentary, I'm not sure. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Cool. Well, thanks for slipping in here. The thing that we were just talking about in the same setup here was about healthcare, and you were mentioning Jesus, who, you know, raised Lazarus from the dead, and I thought I'd like to continue on that episode at one point, and so I went into you the other morning and mentioned that, and you told me about an article that you had just read about the Finnish government. And I don't know if I'm going to take it in the way that you meant to, but that's what I wanted to start off with, because you said, well, maybe you could share about this article with everybody first.
Yeah, it was beautiful. The entire Finnish government resigned because they had run on a platform of different reformations. One of them was mainly the healthcare system in Finland, is to reform it and to make it more cost effective and improve the healthcare for everybody in the country, which is aging. There's over 20% of the people in Finland that are over 65 years old. So, but they resigned close to the next election because they didn't accomplish their goal. They didn't accomplish what they ran on, the platform. They didn't significantly reform or improve the healthcare system, and so they said, well, we didn't do it, but other people can come in, and, you know, we shouldn't be here if we didn't do what we said we could do. So the whole government resigned. But to me, it was, he was talking more about political accountability, which is kind of a form of integrity, you know, which integrity is beautiful, whatever you get a symbol of it, and ultimately then the integrity is in the mind. Everything you think and say and do and feel is all in alignment, is what really integrity or true honesty is.
Well, this is the part I want to talk about, because after I left your room, when you mentioned that, since I never take whatever you're saying to me as like just casual or something, like what is it for me? And I don't know if this is true. This is why I wanted to ask you. I took it as like, okay, that's going to be. I took it as I can't even voice it. I'm so scared.
Spit it out, man.
Is the 4 months where you guys were traveling, and I was working with the millennials, and we had overseers and ninjas, and it was like, for me, it was a high communication function, teaching them how to communicate. And ultimately, I guess it's all a forgiveness lesson, but I really believed I had the purpose to kind of show them what it's like to live with elders, and maybe as much as the elders would be around them, have this love kind of rub off and see how decisions get made. And so I poured my heart into this. But then now with this new phase coming in with you and Deanna, and wherever there was like this expansion, and in the expansion, so to speak, things got dropped or lost, or there's like, oh yeah, forget about it, it's just forgiveness and the core, you know. It's like, that's the focus. There's this feeling like, okay, whatever my mission was, which is, I'm not fully even clear on it, failed. And so when you say that, yeah, were you saying that in a way? Asking you, I know you're not going to say I was wrong, but what if you were meaning that to me? Can we go into that topic a little bit more? Because what happened after I left you was I just assumed that was true and thought, okay, well, what was my mission? And let's just take full responsibility. And I had this experience where I was like, you know, like in Tron, where he's at the very end and he puts his hands down and the whole world comes back into his mind. I was like, okay, no more thoughts of people didn't help me or join me, or I don't know if I took the ministry on. It's all my mind. Okay, I did do it. And then it was just like, whoom, like this feeling, and it felt really good, actually, but I can't help but separate that from the I did things right or wrong. And so I wanted to go into that deeper. How do you really, what did you mean? How do I take it back? So yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Well, I think it all starts that here we are in the show, the bottom up, and it all starts with starting off with seemingly the form of things. That's the presenting problem, so to speak, or the presenting situation, and then, you know, coming back deeper and deeper into an integrity. And I think ultimately it runs so deep, because it's not just about behavioral integrity, which is the way many people in the world see it. It goes much deeper into the mind, but also the whole idea of prayer is so deep, because, you know, the prayer is actually described by Jesus in the Song of Prayer as like a ladder, and you go up the rungs higher and higher and higher until you reach the top of the ladder, which is the highest prayer that there can ever be, is, Father, what is your will for me? To know that your will and God's will are one, are in harmony for happiness, is the return to heaven. And then the steps along the way are always steps in, I think it's a purification that's going on in the mind. You know, like, blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. It's always something like that in a deeper realm. So it's not so much in terms of assignments or successes or failures. It does come into, like, it's all going down deeper down the rabbit hole. It's all going down deeper into the purification. And I feel like, you know, that we were talking about with the Finnish government is an example, but it was just a beautiful example to me of an admission that, oh, we ran with a goal, we didn't accomplish the goal, so we'll step aside and you know, let whoever is planning to come in next, or whoever is elected next, have their shot at it. So I feel like it's always a progression. I mean, everything's always going towards the healing, and so it's not like there are true successes or failures. Jesus even says in the Course, you can't judge your advances from your retreats, because everything's backwards and upside down in this world. So it's not like you can use the same standards of the world to kind of gauge spiritual development. It's more the prayer of the heart is to let everything go and be shown, let it all be revealed, and that's always happening. So I think that's the main context of it.
It's funny because just when you mentioned the different Star Trek crews you've worked with, and I was part of the Deep Space Nine in 2000 to But when you were saying that now it's the millennials, I feel like I'm not in that crew or something. I want to be, but I'm like, oh my God, am I just going to be passed to the wayside or something like that? And, you know, normally I would think the other way, like I'm more advanced, but now I'm having these thoughts of like, oh my God, what if I'm going to be
well, your generation was like the 2000s, when I look back, as just having the monastery come in, and then that house, Bandana Ranch, and the beginning of the big, huge projects like MMT, Mystical Mind Training, the massive collaborations collaborations in so many different projects, whether it's fixing up the monastery, completely rehabbing from inside out, masterpiece. This Bandana Ranch house coming in basically is a little like incubator for mystical mind training, and specific ones coming in there. And then I think after MMT, Helena Hunison was in there, and Al, and different ones, and it kind of was the music collaborations. So I was kind of sharing these steps, even the first, I would say the 80s, where I was out in the woods in Hermitage in Kentucky on Lake Arrowhead, near Corinth, Kentucky, and having mystical experiences. That was the 80s, were like 3 revelatory experiences. So it's like starts with blazing light, and then the 90s was lots and lots of travel around the United States and Canada. And since John and Camille were there, I said, "Oh, you're from that era," and going down to to Georgia, and with Catherine and Jim, and doing a gathering, quite a few, in an airplane hangar, with one time where people, even during one-on-ones during the break, were up in the air, being flown around in planes, and just giving people little flavors of how rich and full it was with all those travels and all those gatherings and everything, and including, that's how I met you on those trips up there to Edmonton during all that phase of travel and gathering. And then the 2000s to me were, it was like so many collaborations, like we working together with a synergy like we had never done before to put together these amazing tools that, to this day, people are using, everything from MMT to the online Movie Watcher's Guide to Enlightenment, just the way that the properties and the structures were used as these incubators for people to come and have a safe place to be, to basically go through their darkness and let it all up, learn to pray, learn to communicate, learn through all kinds of relationships, and undoing old egoic patterns to work together in a synergistic way for the good of the whole. Very expansive, like hugely expansive. And then that's the forerunner. I think it was like more with the millennials. It wasn't so much their age, but it was more like, it's like they've seen the nothingness of the world. Like I was saying, they were like more like in their teens and 20s, living the lesson 128. The world I see holds nothing that I want, where they get to the end of the rope faster, and then it's not like that is spiritual enlightenment or anything. That's just a faster disillusionment with the world. They're still wandering, looking around, trying things out, trying relationships out, not fitting into a world, not fitting into school, not fitting into anything of the world. And sometimes even going through drug addictions and all kinds of things, but it's just like going through things that the other generation sometimes took years or decades to move through. And they're like, where do we go? And so you're part of I did mention SpiriTV and SpiriTV, and one of our hosts, Gabrielle, who was our transportation, our driver, she said, I was so touched when you mentioned the millennials, because it just touched me that they're in your mind, that you're praying and thinking, how do we reach these? They have different languaging, they have different symbols that they're familiar with, they have a different way of interacting with the world than previous generations. And she was so touched. She said, oh my God, I have a nephew, and he's 21 right now, and he's going through that. It really feels like we're here, and now it's almost like we're just shifting gears to reach, to extend now in another way that is going to be very pertinent and very practical. I think also we've talked about how, Jesus would preface his talks with, for those that have the ears to hear, let them hear. And the millennials, in many cases, in their own way, have the ears to hear. And yet it has to come in a way that really they can understand it, that it's relevant, that it grabs their attention. So that was my thing. And I don't know that, I don't really see that anybody's like being left behind or anything like that. I do feel like it's just, we're all in a place of prayer and letting Jesus direct and lead the way, and saying, how can we be most helpful in that? And that's all we're doing is staying in that prayerful place of show us the way.
Just the fact that I go past all the fear and everything and see it in terms of being in or out, does that reflect like more accurately the truth, shall I say, about getting in touch with the abandonment? Is that like a deeper layer than just projection and all that stuff?
Yeah, I do feel like any type of abandonment feelings or being out of some of the main flow or something, or being rejected or anything in those really do go back to the core ego belief and core ego emotions, which most often are often projected to God, as if like that famous song, until the one who left us here returns for us at last, that come on people now, smile on your brother song. Even that, until the one who left us here returns for us at last, that's projecting on God, like, well, God left us here and eventually God will come back for us. But it's still, there's all kinds of projections onto God, and then it's very typically projected onto people or groups or communities or situations, like that, where there's a feeling of like abandonment or missing the boat or something like that, which is, it does go all the way back to God, to that feeling like something very wrong seemed to occur, or there was an experience of an ontological guilt of wrongness. And then people oftentimes feel uncomfortable with the world, or uncomfortable in the skin, or uncomfortable in relationships, or very afraid of shifting relationships. Like I could miss the boat, or I could get left out, or something like that. And that all goes back to that one ontological belief and feeling of separateness.
Because I was praying this morning, I was a little bit afraid of if you came back, because I would talk about this, but like I have this experience, like when I first started even building Moodle, I was really teaching some of the audios and pulling out from what you said, this idea that you can just kind of go home to God through following guidance, and you would just kind of, and then one day, years later, you said, it's not like that. It's messy. Like there's a messiness. And I just took that as like, whoa, I've got to really, maybe I'm skipping something by just thinking that way. And then now more the experience is like, which is the scary part, is like one of the shows, a few shows back, months ago, you said, you don't know, things could be underneath. There could even be a suicide thoughts or something. And I didn't know if you were referring to me or somebody in the audience at the time, but that's always stuck with me. And then lately, like yesterday, I had, for the first time since I had stepped out, I actually finished everything on my list, all my to-dos. Like I've been slowly working at it, like taxes and even editing and my intro. I just got the intro ready. Everything was just, I'm like, oh my God, I don't have anything else. Obviously I could find something.
Your plate was relatively clean.
It was clean. And so then I went for a walk and came back. And on the way back, I just started bursting into tears. Like, and I would hear that thought again, like, I don't want to be here. And I'm like, what is that? Because I really looked at it, and I could, if I'd hear it before, I would think, okay, the ministry. But I don't really feel that's what it is. And then it's like, oh my God, is that the like a suicide thought? Doesn't want to be here. Is that what you would mean? And it just feels like when you're not covering it over with any kind of next thing or doing or something, and it's there, but then it feels so big or something. And then there's this sadness but it just like, it closes up so quickly, and I don't. And then what happens is if it closes up, and then I think certain people are wrong or situations, and then, yeah. So I don't know what to do with that. Like, because I was talking with Deanna last night, and she said, oh yeah, well, there must be some like attraction to things of the world, which is on Andy's show, and the things that you think you want hold you back as much as the things you don't. So I'm like, okay, I can see thoughts in the mind that I'm not really running for, but and she said, oh, you can't even look at those until you face the wrongness. So I'm like, okay, you got to face the wrongness. Then you see attraction. So I thought I'd bring this up. And
yeah, it's like the path of the Course is through the darkness to the light. That's why it can seem messy. I mean, it can be like a bursting experience, kind of like the Eckhart Tolle, park bench experience, although he would probably tell you, well, there was a lot of darkness that moving through the darkness that came even before the park bench experience. So don't think it's just like poof, a park bench awakening, and then it can be that easy. For most, it's not, and even for Eckhart, I'm sure there were stages and things that he moved through. And then it was very disorienting after the park bench experience, like not relating to the world and needing to reorient and reintegrate just to be able to seem to function after that experience. It was so massive. But for most, it's a slowly evolving curriculum, and you're describing too that there's some darkness and dark emotions with it, and then there's the attractions that are with it too, and they seem to be very different in the world, except they're really the same. It's like looking at a diamond from different angles. Oh, wow. It just glitters and looks like attractions, and then when you flip it around, it's really the bottom side is very dark and so forth. It's the same error. It's the same.
So it's not that attractions are on top of them. They
are the same. It's like it's absolutely identical. Which is why the teachings of the Course, even pain and pleasure, it's impossible to seek for pleasure without finding pain. You can't have one without the other. These are very deep teachings, and even the self-concept, which the face of innocence is more, on the surface, and there can be some, times when it says the face is wet with tears at the injustices of the world, and so forth. And it can have some attractions and pleasurable aspects, and then underneath that is again what we're talking about, what Jesus says, that the shadow aspect of the self-concept that's draped with sin. He says, very, very dark, but starting to come to see that it's all the same.
So when I'm feeling that emotion, that sadness, that's not the darkness. Like if that's the same as the attraction, that's not the darkness. Still underneath that, there's.
Well, it's part of it. I mean, the sadness is an experience. Sadness, deep sadness, grief, depression, all the seeming aspects of that. That's the darkness. And then also the seeking after something that will, in the world, that will placate or distract or solve or whatever. It's all part of one package that's just kind of gets flipped around and round. And that's why it seems to take so long. If guilt wasn't attractive, if the ego didn't make guilt attractive, then it would be a pretty quick journey to God. But because it would just be like putting your hand on a stove, I say, and you burn yourself, and it's like, that's enough of that. I will never go there again. But guilt is flipped around by the ego into attractive things, and that's why it seems to take quite an unwinding and a withdrawal and a exposure because of that underneath.
So where does the wrongness fit in? Is that even more surface than these attractions and sadness kind of a thing?
I think when it's on the surface, it's tied into certain behaviors, regrets, coulda, woulda, shouldas. It's tied into to more the body and the personality. As you go way down into the mind, it's an ontological wrongness, like a deep feeling of something went terribly, terribly wrong. It's the belief in separation from God, and the obstacles to peace. You get it down to the fear of God. Why would God be fearful unless there was a sense of wrongness, like actual wrongness, like actually trying to usurp God, actually believing you pulled off the separation? That's getting down to real deep, dark feelings that are very covered over in awareness, because the mind can't handle that, intensity. Or the Jack Nicholson line underneath it, you can't handle the truth. And Jesus is like, well, that's actually the case, but you can't handle the air either. You're distracting on the surface because the separation is this ontological wrongness is too dark, too sad to handle, pushed out of awareness. And underneath it, the blazing light of God and truth is, of course, is underneath that. So it's all pushed out of awareness. Part of the amnesia of forgetting God and love and heaven.
So in these conversations I'm having, for example, one of the people in our community is going on tour soon, and I'm joining with him about it. And rather than just trying to figure it out, it's like just taking each moment very slowly and feeling, almost from zero. Is it guided? Where's the path? Where's it coming from, really, in a deep level?
Yeah.
And in doing that, I'm present. It's a direction. I feel very good with that. And then I'll have these conversations with another member of the community, and the way she'll say things to me, it's like, if I stay in full alignment with nothing, like this moment, and just what now, it feels good. But as soon as I interpret it as something was wrong and now we're fixing it here, or something like that, it just feels terrible. I feel terrible. And I don't know if it's actually what's being spoken, it's my interpretation. And metaphysically, there's no difference. But I don't know how to approach it, because do I say nothing and then, I'm going to be taking my next direction from that place that something's wrong? Or is it I need to speak to it and say, I cannot operate if there's any feeling of something was wrong. But then when I do that, I almost feel like I'm making the error more real. And I really want to get under this. And I feel like this is a gift being given to me to get under this wrongness, but I literally don't know. How do I speak to it? Do I not? Do I say nothing? I'm starting to get glimpses. When I say nothing, I just sit with it, something softens, and then she'll even ask me a question, what I think about the very same thing that I'll then get to express, but it's not coming from a harshness. And so then, because I don't want to stay in that realm, and I have to get through this realm to get to these deeper things. So this is a deep thing for me. So I don't know.
I think it's just, again, undoing the belief in linear time, because it's not like this timeline of past, present, and future, and this thing that some event or circumstance or something happened in the past that was wrong. It's more that, it's like that Elisa Amor song, only an instant does this world endure. What a beautiful idea, because what it does is it takes linear time and it starts to squeeze linear time down. If you could take the big timeline, you start to squeeze it, and you really squeeze it all the way. You come back to the unholy instant, which is the wrong mind, and the holy instant, which is the right mind. And this moment is the choice. It's not about coulda, woulda, shouldas, as something could have been different in form, or something could have been changed, or something could have been better. That's where the guilt comes in. Did I do something wrong? Could I have done something better? Wanting approval, wanting wanting to make it right, you know, and this is how linear time is perpetuated. Ego saying, yeah, something went terribly wrong in the past. Don't even doubt that, you know, you're guilty and it was terrible. And it's saying the present moment is, you can't really change it. And therefore you're doomed to hell because of what happened, you know. And that's where this hellfire idea came into a lot of different religions. You know, you'll burn in hell, you'll pay. You don't think you can separate from God and not have a consequence. And so it's always very dark. It's projected into a dismal future, a very dark future. That's why a lot of even the movies about the future, even some of our classics, Days of Future Past, you know, this destruction, you know, where the humans and all the mutants are, it's just dark, and then we've got to go back in time to change it or correct it. The Course is not saying we go back in time really to correct it. It's saying this instant, if you have a split mind, you have to learn to choose correctly. You have to choose the correction, choose the miracle, choose the healing. Right now. Now is your point of power. Now is where it's all right there. Through dissociation, the mind's trying to maintain two irreconcilable thought systems. One of fear, which is the darkness, the unholy instant, the past. One of love, which is the forgiveness, the atonement, the Holy Spirit, Jesus. So, you know, when we have these conversations, it is apparent more and more that it is feeling, you're like feeling the more the intensity when these two thought systems are brought back together. When it's actually how the healing occurs, it's ending the dissociation. When you bring darkness and light together, only one remains. Only one is real. But by trying to keep them apart, how do you do that? Through a timeline. Could this event have been different? Could I have done any better? You know, you see how it's always, ego's trying to always push it off to the timeline and coulda, woulda, shoulda. If only, I mean, all the psychotherapy that people do for years and years, going to therapists, rehashing their childhood, rehashing their teen years and their relationships, going over and over those things on the timeline, or all those memories, but that's still not going to bring about the solution. Even the movie that one of your all-time great collapsed movies was the Star Trek Time's End, and the main character, you know, is raging because he believes that Captain Picard was taken by the Borg and had something to do with the death of his wife on the timeline. And he's furious about it. But then he has to go on this whole adventure with, you know, to humbly start to realize that, you know, it's your choice. It's your choice right now. It's not something of the past. You know, that's such a fantastic little episode of 50 minutes or whatever on completely undoing the belief in linear time and taking full responsibility for the choice that you had. And at the end, there's our main character with tears coming down his face going, it's not linear. You know, it's like, boom, he pops, you know, he pops. It's intense, but he pops. Yeah.
Because the actual, when you pop, like it's just seeing clarity or whatever, it's nothing. It feels very neutral.
Yeah.
But until then, it's like lots of drama or something.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, yeah. Linear time is very dramatic. It's lots of drama. Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe sometimes you can go straight on him. Yeah, the other thing that, there's people, maybe we can wave for a second.
Yeah. You get to see all of our smiling faces. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Heavy.
Yeah. Oh, Raphael, Sevi, Troy, Kelly, Mary, Julie, yep. There's Jeff still on top of the world. Down there. Stephen, it's very, very precious. When you first did that Times End movie, we were like, everyone was like, oh my gosh, because it was so compressed, the whole thing of the core of the healing, of getting, beyond the dualism of the world, because he was so steeped in dualism. He's like, baseball. They're like, yeah, competition. Aggressive, adversarial, and he's like saying, no, you don't know what's going to happen when the pitcher pitches the ball and the batter hits it. You don't know what's going to happen, and they're basically saying, you really think your ignorance is valuable or something? This hypotheticals that are to the sleeping mind that are really, you don't know what's going to happen on that first date. You don't know what's going to happen when the pitcher pitches to the batter. It's like it's part of an ignorance, when actually what takes you out of it is choice, seeing you have a choice for healing. Always, in every instant, you have a choice for healing. And then slowly becoming aware that that's actually the only option that is reasonable. The wrong mind is not a reasonable choice. The ancient, instant of hatred, the unholy instant, is not an actual reasonable choice. It's the correction, the love, the light is reasonable. And we are worthy of that. And that's part of the whole awakening, is starting to see we're worthy of that love.
I had, you weren't here, but did you see that moose clip?
No, I saw something on Facebook, just a little bit, maybe like a photo.
Just a photo, okay.
Of the moose.
Well, you missed it, but I shared with everybody that you and I kind of were just praying, but this last week, if we would do pre-records or filming, and then just with the studio team being so busy, one day I was just praying whether to do it or not, and I was feeling all this pressure, and then Deanna called me and said she really feels there's too much going on, but it didn't feel she was saying there's too much going on. It was like she was answering a prayer that you don't do it today. And all of a sudden this lightness lifted off, and I could go do this walk, which is where the moose thing came in. And he actually walked up. You didn't see the video, but he walked right up to me on the road, and like a horse, put his hand in my, and I was like, hey buddy, and then walked away. Okay, that's a little wild moose,
right.
And not a horse. Because it feels there's a difference. But it showed me, I always thought if I was just in India or something and lions were roaming around like that guy, I'd just sit there calmly while the lions. But here was a female moose, and I could feel But the point being that to come to you after she called and kind of freed me from that and say, because I would come to you and say, do you want to do it? Are you feeling? And every time I'd feel like you're so open, not even just open, just like, yeah, we could go, and just like, and so when I came, I was about to say, we're not going to do it. I was like this, I can't, how can I say this to David, and you're like, oh, that's fine, tomorrow morning. And then I'm like, well, it might be then too. And there's some kind of like devastation that you'd be open, and I say that, but the walk was so amazing with the moose, and it's about trusting elders and joy, something about joy and stability and everything. And then I was meditating on that later that night, and I heard, no, it's just how much you love me, actually. Whenever you're so open for this, it's not about something has to happen and then I'm stopping it. You're loving me. And I'm like, oh my God, if I could just see everything in that kind of a realm instead of doing good or bad, or something.
Yeah, we're not trying to make something happen. It's beautiful. It's beautiful too that you had that encounter with that big moose, because I just read a newspaper article, or a news article, you probably saw it too, where it was up at one of the state or the federal parks. I don't know if it's Yellowstone or one of the big ones. And there was a giant moose loose that they said was intimidating, terrorizing park visitors. And so your story is a whole different take on, you know, your encounter with this moose, because they actually flew 4 Canadian wolves and airdropped them into the park to
give a predator
to get the moose. Right. I'm like, wow, this is it was. I just saw that. I thought, airdropping Canadian moose
wolves, yeah.
Well, and or wolves to get the big intimidating moose, and then you're out on the road having a holy encounter with a moose.
Well, what had happened, I told everybody, I had parked on the side of the road because there was nowhere to walk. There was so much snow, and I said, well, where am I going to walk? And then this moose just walks by on the road, and I thought, well, I'll walk with the moose.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, that's good. That's letting go of all thoughts of danger in the world. Yeah, and yeah, like that movie where you mentioned the young mystic goes into the village with the lion, and
right.
You know, he's just meditating, and yeah, it's a beautiful metaphor.
Wow. Okay, Current. Well, I think we're probably wrapping it up here. I was just, yeah, maybe the last question I have is, like, before these shows start, and it was interesting today because were you going to come on or not? Was it going to play this thing? And all of this fear, it's just fear pretty much most of the morning again. And I attribute that to, I'm about to say things that I'm terrified or let go of some concept or something. But then when it was like, okay, you're not coming, it just relaxed. And then, is it true that the fear is just about this exposure and like getting closer into the light, and these shows are good for that? Or because when the fear's up, you're just thinking, well, this must be the wrong direction, you know? But
no, it's never helpful to interpret that the fear is the wrong direction, in the sense that it's the fear is the fear of love, the fear of the ego's fear of annihilation, the ego's fear of being lost. Like, it's like, I don't want to keep exposing to the light, because in the end I won't be around to expose anymore. It's a fear of loss of self, loss of identity. And that's, of course, that's what the whole world is about. You know, all the sleeping mind seemingly projected out as all these 7 billion personalities, you know, it's just the fear of losing something that now is real and that actually exists. But actually the world and the projections, the body, the cosmos, they don't actually exist because God didn't create them. So, you know, the ego is hoping that it will have a perpetual existence, even though it has none. And it's hoping that God will just crack, almost like a child who throws a temper tantrum and wants candy or ice cream or something. And then it's feeling like, I'm going to get mom, you know, I'm going to get her to give me what I want in the grocery store. I'll throw up the biggest temper tantrum and hissy fit right in front of all those other customers in public, so I can get that candy or that ice cream cone. And the ego is, you know, it throws its temper tantrums and everything. It wants to exist. It wants God to grant reality to time and space. And God wouldn't be God if God granted reality to time and space, because God is spirit. God is eternal love. And God, everything that God creates is spirit and eternal. So it's this friction of, it's basically fear of loss of identity. The ego believes something real will be taken away. There will be a sacrifice that has to be paid to go back to heaven and oneness. And it's not the truth. That the ego made up sacrifice as well. How can you have to give up the unreal to know the real and call that a sacrifice? You know, it's not realistic. But that's it. That's always the core thing. That's what the fear is. I even got asked that when I was out at the gathering in San Diego, where one woman in the front row, she just said, I wrote it down in my notes. We are afraid of love, but can I ask about that? I don't know that I'm afraid of love. And I explained, well, while you're sleeping and dreaming and identify with the ego, that's where the fear of love comes in. Love isn't fearful, from what it is. It's the ego that's afraid of the love because of the loss, the belief in loss. And that comes from the belief in separation. Yeah. Oh,
thank you, David.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Sweeties.
Oh, Helen is there.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
Joni, Julie.
Yeah. All the hearts. Thumbs up. Prayers. Love.
Thank you, everybody, for joining another episode of From the Bottom Up. I'm back on Sundays now, so we'll see you every Sunday. Love you.
Love you.
Thanks, guys. Great way to start off the new season from the bottom up. So at this point, we've got a beautiful new video about Awakening to Love Retreat coming up in August, so please stay tuned for that. If you're viewing us through YouTube Live, we'll say goodbye and see you next Sunday. So goodbye to YouTube viewers, and for those of you in the Zoom room, hang in there for a minute or so, and we'll play a beautiful new Awakening to Love video, which, as you know, that retreat starts in August, and it's going to be